On the black soil by the lake, two people were sitting quietly, looking at the devastating scene before them. Some rotting bodies of beasts filled the once clear and beautiful lake. They were just sitting there staring at the heart-shattering sight with stiff expressions. "Brian, you protected me. You protected everyone. You are a hero, at least for me. Thank you." Her voice was filled with gratitude and, he may not get it, but there was love. "Don't say it like that. I would always protect you," he replied while still looking forward. The voice that escaped his mouth was filled with relief and sadness. From what she knew him, he loved nature to some extent. Seeing this scene wasn't pleasant for him, nor for her. Those low-rank demonic creatures didn't even know how to spare nature. Well, in a way, nature was their enemy, so it was normal. "Can't we do something about this?" I asked, looking at the other side of the lake. The lake was big, but not so much that we can't even see the other end. "We, as humans, can't," he was certain as he said that. "For humans to pull out the purification of this much wide area, at least 20 high holy power users would be needed. And that may still not be a lot. Maybe even after that, some parts would remain polluted with this negative energy." He sighed and kept forward. She turned her head and looked at him. His face wasn't covered with a mask, so she could see his face clearly. Those sad eyes, those tightly shut lips, and that face that seemed hopeless. But suddenly he narrowed his eyes and tried to look closely. He blinked a few times in utter disbelief. This was the first time I had seen him behave like this. Surprised, I looked forward to seeing what he was gawking at. And, as soon as I looked in that direction, my eyes froze on a single thing. In this disgusting, horrible, and unsightly place, there was something on the other end of the lake. A very large, shining figure of a creature. A bright, pure white light with some blue mixed in it. A very, very, very large horse was standing there gracefully. Its long silver-blue hair danced with the slow breeze of the afternoon. Sun was about to set down and it was almost twilight. With a somewhat dark sky, I could clearly see the horse-like creature's eyes. His eyes, they were deep, filled with unparalleled wisdom. Filled with the knowledge that none could possibly understand. They were as blue as the sea and they sparkled. Just like stars, something was twinkling in them. And the most unique thing about it was definitely the horn. A pure white horn-like feature was visible on its forehead. As I looked at it, it also glanced back at me. Those unique eyes met mine. I felt like someone was seeing the depths of my soul, checking everything, seeing everything about me. This eye contact lasted for just a moment, but I felt like a long time had passed in that short moment. After that moment, I looked at it again. It somewhat smiled and shook its head, as if it had missed a chance. Then it glanced at Brian beside me. He flinched just like me. That feeling was really weird. It took him longer to come back from that blank slate. Maybe he also felt just like me, like someone has seen every inch of your soul. Then we both looked at it again. Now it had a sad expression, almost of pity. It blinked its unique eyes as if expressing its sorrow. Taking a step back, it somewhat nodded. It was a very giant creature and we both knew exactly what it was. And we still couldn't believe our eyes. A small white light appeared on the horn of the divine beast in front of us. It looked in our direction one last time and blinked. Felt warm somehow. The small light on its horn flew in the sky and the horse disappeared. Silence once again filled the surroundings. Our eyes followed the small light flying in the sky naturally. In the high sky, it stopped and started expanding. The small light turned into a big, bright ball of light. Then, after a moment, it exploded. One turned into many and brightened the sky. Like fireworks, the white light filled the entire sky above the lake. This scene was breathtaking. As the white particles of light from these fireworks touched the polluted ground, it turned back. The black plants returned to their original form. Trees started growing back as leaves sprouted all over them. Water started clearing up, returning to its former, clean and sparkling state. I felt a warm touch on my right hand and turned my gaze to my side. Still staring at the sky, Brian said in a clear, small voice, filled with love, "Miss Nolan, I think I'm in love with you." My eyes widened in surprise. My heart skipped a beat as a single drop of tear escaped my right eye. I had waited a long time to hear that, and finally, the time had come. My time had come. In such perfect time, place, and way too. In the twilight of dusky sun and rising moon, white explosions filled the sky. The harmony of everything was just perfect. I smiled warmly. Facing him and looking into those clear red eyes, I smiled warmly. His face turned rose-red as he looked back into my eyes. "Yes, of course you love me." Leaning forward, I closed my eyes and kissed this fool. He was surprised, but then gave up after I wrapped my arms around his firm neck. There was no way this cutie could win against me. Equals 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 equals. Mom and Dad saw a real unicorn? Ian shouted, jumping from his seat between us. Brian looked embarrassed, but looking at his genuinely shocked son was far more interesting. He was quiet and normal throughout the whole story except some particular parts. This indeed was the most interesting story he had heard. It was already late night and we had set up a bonfire in the backyard. Chicken stew was being cooked on the other side of this outside camp. The mouth-watering aroma was just that awesome. Right now, I could practically read the complex mind of my little son from those cute expressions. They have actually met a divine beast. They had actually seen a unicorn. They even saw divine skill. They are amazing. He was looking at us with sparkling, respectful eyes. It was very fun to see him actually act like a child. A burst of warm laughter escaped my mouth as I looked at both of them. My two little, dumb sweethearts. Divine beast. White, ranked energy beasts and the strongest existences comparable to gods in this world. In my previous world, they were only considered creatures of legends. But here in this world actually exist those same mythological beings. In the old stories of my previous world, they represented different values and human natures. They pointed at one unique thing which then became their motif. Like love, purity, speed, death, life, birth, time, and many more. Here, they have that same feature as their specialty trait. Just like my phonographic memory, that unique thing about them reflects in their very being. They have their own abilities, powers, and strengths. They are so powerful that their power couldn't be just measured by simple means. They are wise and hold great authority in this world. Just seeing one in person is considered one of the greatest blessings for a person. You can't actually see their true form as normal humans can't even bear that. As for strong people like my mom and dad, they are considered still lucky. You have to be as strong as them to barely withstand the phantom form of them. Even so, the divine beast was the one to show itself to them. It deemed them worthy enough to show itself to them, just like meeting a god. If children of my previous world hears the story, they would just jump around the whole house in surprise. The beautiful creatures that they only saw on screen and in movies are real here, everyone including I would want to meet them. I envy my parents the most now. They actually met such being in person. And not only that, but they also witnessed the use of a divine skill. These skills aren't something a human could perform, ever. Just the sheer knowledge and mental power required for casting are unfathomable. They are also called miracle by people in this world because it is beyond human limits. Not even Tier 9 mages could come close to them. As for Tier 10 archmages, though they are considered superhumans, they could barely come close to them. Origin masters could be considered as archmages in terms of strength, but they are stronger. The power possessed at that level goes against the common senses. That is why Origin grandmasters live separately from the world. Power of a Origin could reach as strong as miracle at their level. Some believe that divine beasts are also creatures born directly from these origins. If a god is someone who controls Origin at their will, they should be people who reached a realm beyond saint. Saints also held godly powers, and they could be equal to divine beasts. That is the reason they are worshipped as almost gods. Their power is still borrowed in the form of divine energy. Well, thinking too deeply about these things are meaninglessness. I sighed and looked at the red-orange stew in my bowl. Hearing their story was really amazing. My heart skipped beats from time to time, and at some points I almost cried. Though they had left many things blank, I could clearly feel every emotion in their word. The joy, longing, sadness, cold, and loneliness. I already knew they were amazing, but now I really respect them. They were much more than just amazing. I didn't have words to express my feelings right now. I just stared at the stew with excitement oozing out of me. Mom and Dad were happy to see me like this as they sat by me. I was still lost in my thoughts. A unicorn is a creature of lakes, purity, and light. A very famous creature that any girl would have loved in my previous world. Especially the young girls. They loved them like crazy. Back then, I didn't know what was so special about these horses. The phantom of this unicorn was very big. It had its pure white hair, and the blue mixed in them must be a water attribute. The light from its horn must have been the divine skill. Light of purity. In the books, it is depicted as the power to wipe out any impurities, evil, or negativity. This one didn't have any offensive uses, but still was considered one of the strongest powers against demons. And they had witnessed the very thing themselves. Though it was just a fraction of what the skill could do, that was more than enough to mesmerize someone for a lifetime. Now, I knew. Now, I really understood that deep nostalgic look in their eyes. They every time saw the normal fireworks as those phenomenal explosions of light. They felt the emotions they had felt that very day. They lived their past again. In a very good way. They were happy and glad to be there at that exact moment. If not for that day, things may have been different. But that didn't happen. I was here, listening to them tell me about one of the many exciting things about them. Now I wanted to hear more about them. I wanted to know much more, but I didn't show that on my face. The time for that will also come, just like today. I will wait patiently, just like Mom did for Dad. Or maybe not. Not like her, at least. For this matter, I had more patience than her. I smiled brightly and lifted my spoon. Taking a spoon full of thick warm stew with a small chunk of chicken meat, I put it in my mouth. The smell, flavor, the texture of the meat were amazing. This was definitely sorcery. I was still miles away from making something like this from this world. Though I had the knowledge of my previous life, I still knew almost nothing about the outside world and had close to zero experience in many things. And learning those unknown things will be more fun than I expect, hopefully. I finished the meal and put the bowl on the other side with the other plates. Mom and Dad also finished their meals, and we sat down once again. This time, as we sat, Mom was in the middle of us. Holding Dad and my hand gently, she spoke in a calm voice. "Brian, Ian, I have something to tell you too." In the sweet dark of night, under the sweet light of the beautiful moon and sparkling stars, sitting by the lovely bonfire, I looked at my mom. She was calm and serious. She was also holding Dad and my hand gently but tightly, meaning the thing she was going to say was something important. I glanced at Dad, but he also looked as confused as I. Taking a deep breath, she spoke in a happy, excited voice. "Honey, Ian, we are having a baby." As soon as the words left her mouth, my mind went blank. It wasn't that I didn't hear her. I heard her loud and clear, and something inside me melted. Dad was shocked at first, then he jumped up smiling. He smiled and laughed the brightest I had ever seen him. He lifted Mom high and spun around in circles. Mom also laughed with the brightest smile I had seen her. But I stayed still. My mind was thinking about many things right now. In my previous life, there was no one with me. I had no one, and I had always thought of how my life had turned out if I had a sibling. A little sister or a little brother? How would have I lived back then? Maybe much better than how I did, right? Caring for a little sibling, playing with them, going out and doing fun things. Spoil them a bit and scold them sometimes. I had dreamed of such things many times back then. I envied others and longed for the same happiness. I even tried to open up to others, but the fear of losing them never went away. But now, I had everything I wanted. I had a family, and now, I will also have a little sibling. My once lost dream will actually be real. Tears started flowing out of my small eyes. Clear, crystal-like tears. I was happy, the happiest I had ever been. Maybe more than my parents. They looked at me with a warm smile and sighed. I was happy and they knew that. Though they didn't know about my past life, they knew I was special in many ways. They had seen the unnatural loneliness in my eyes, so they understood me best. Sitting down by my side again, they hugged me gently. I buried my head in their warm embrace. I was happy and the tears coming out of my closed eyes seemed endless. In reality, it would be weird that I was crying after hearing that I was going to become a big brother. But they understood this weirdness of mine. With the cool breeze of the night, I closed my eyes. Today was long and full of surprises. Good ones that I will remember forever. First rays from the rising sun passed through the window of a large bedroom, stopping on the bed. Beautiful women with beautiful long blonde hair, a handsome man with black hair, and a pretty boy with golden blonde hair were sleeping on the big bed. My eyes twitched slightly as the sunlight fell exactly on my eyes. Slowly opening my eyes, I saw my precious baby and lovely husband sleeping peacefully. A bright morning's beautiful view warmed my eyes. They both looked super cute. Whenever they slept together like this, my hand unconsciously went up, and I caressed both of their heads. I put my hand on the small, soft cheeks of my little boy and stroked them gently. He had fallen asleep after crying his eyes out in happiness. He was special, but nothing could change the fact that he was my son. I knew he had things he had never told us, but there was no point in knowing them. I knew everything there was to know about my son, and if one day he wanted to say something, I would listen quietly, just like he does. Just then, his long golden eyelashes moved slightly. He slowly opened his beautiful red eyes and looked at me. "Good morning, Mom." He was still somewhat asleep, which looked very cute. He pulled up his body and I did the same. Sitting on the bed, I looked at my husband who was still asleep. Ian pulled his daddy's cheeks, still half asleep. I managed to not laugh at this. With much difficulty. With a weird sound, he opened his eyes. I knew that sound, maybe Ian didn't, but I knew. No point in talking about that deeply. He also opened his eyes slowly and looked up at us. "Rise and shine, sleepyhead." I cheerfully greeted him. He also pulled himself up, still half asleep. Looking at Ian, he nodded his head. "Good morning, both of you," he greeted in a tired voice. "Morning, Dad." In unison, they both yawned with their hand on their mouth. I smiled, looking at them with warm eyes. Brian looked up at me and then his eyes fell downwards. "Good morning to you too, little one," he said, smiling softly. Now he was fully awake, and the comment also erased Ian's sleep. Looking at me, or more precisely where Brian was looking, he waved his hand. "Hi, baby," he said awkwardly. I laughed loudly and patted his head. Brian stood up and opened the large window behind him. Walking on the other side, he sat beside me. This morning was beautiful. And to make it even better, we heard a loud familiar scream from the outside. Sky. Ian maybe didn't know what this sound was, but he was going to find out soon. I nodded at Brian and tapped on my wrist. My purple bracelet with the golden jewel appeared and, tapping on the gem, a glove came out in my hand. Handing the unique glove to Brian, I looked at Ian. "Ian, do you know about familiars?" He nodded and started speaking, or precisely giving a full explanation. "They are unique beasts that a mage makes a pact with. The relationship between a familiar and master is the same as parent and child. They make the pact of life, meaning that their lives would forever depend on each other. If the familiar or a master dies, then the other can't make another pact for a lifetime. Familiar's pact varies from person to person or from beast to beast. The abilities shared between familiar and master also varies greatly." He was saying those things like it was nothing, His details were deep, but this wasn't the point right now.
Ok, Ian.
Now, do you want to see one? I asked with an excited smile. His eyes widened in surprise and he nodded vigorously. Yes, he shouted. Brian looked back and smiled at us. Extending his hand with the glove outside the window, he waited a second. The sky. With a melodious scream, a green bird landed on the brown glove. The bird was large, but it was very lightweight as if air. We could feel it just from looking at it. Meet Tully, a great winged eagle. They can travel at a very fast speed across long distances. This one is especially here from the capital. I had many people with familiars working with or under me, and this one was special among all of them. Her master was also a special person. Ian's eyes sparkled with excitement. He ran forward and stood before it. Can I touch her? He hurriedly asked, still excited before touching her. Though it won't do anything, it won't like to be touched by Strand Dash. Before Brian could finish, Ian starched out his hand and gently caressed her. Brian got worried that she would do something and prepared to turn his hand if something happens. Surprisingly, she liked his touch. She happily played with him, shaking her head, laughing. This was weird. If you don't have an affinity towards the particular beast, they tend to react aggressively. Then again, he had a natural affinity to all 6 elements. My little baby was special in many ways, maybe even he didn't know. Shaking my head, I smiled and took the piece of paper Brian took from Tully's leg. My smile deepened as I read the contents of the small letter. Ian stopped and looked at me. Mom, what's that? He asked and pointed his little finger towards the letter. I smiled and answered quietly, with small tears on the ends of my eyes. We are going home. Looking at Mom with wide eyes, I asked in a low voice, Going home? She smiled and nodded her head, tears visible in the corners of her eyes. Yes, in the capital. Everyone is dying to meet you there. Your amazing grandfather and grandmother, your uncle and aunt, as well as your big sister. I stared at her with open eyes. Hearing her say that, my eyes filled with tears again. Nowadays, I didn't have any control over them. A single tear slid through my cold cheeks. Its warmth quickly brought me back to reality. Cleaning my face with my sleeves, I looked at her again. She smiled, longing visible in her eyes. Yes, your grandfather said not to tell about him. You will only know once you meet him. He is an amazing person. Same for your grandma, uncle, and aunt. Your big sis is cool too. I haven't seen her since she was only 1 year old. Your uncle praises her so much in every letter. She also had her birthday, meaning she should be 7 years old by now. Your birthday is also coming next week. Seems like we will be celebrating it there. It will be fun. She was very happy and excited right now. Dad was also the same in this manner. He was very excited. He was naturally a member of this family. We were a big family, and this melted another something in my heart. I was so lucky to have such wonderful parents. I was going to become an older brother. On top of that, I was going to meet my whole family now. The joy this new life gave me was unparalleled, but now it offered more. I had no words to explain this joy, and neither did I had enough tears to express my feelings. Sitting down on the bed, I looked at them with a happy smile and closed my eyes. Smiling back at me, they both sat back down beside me. Dad put Tully down by the window and hugged me gently. Mom did the same with a little more care. These last 2 days were the most precious ones of my life. I now had everything that I longed for in my previous life. There wasn't anything more I knew I wanted. After a bit, I pulled myself up. Looking at Mom, I asked in an anticipating tone. So, Mom, when are we departing? Will we go in a carriage? She smiled and answered in her usual cheerful tone. Yes, we will be going in a carriage. A big one. You will like it. And we are leaving in the morning. At her answer, a worried expression clouded Dad's face. He hurriedly stood up and shouted at her. Nolan, if we are leaving in the morning, we don't have much time to pack up. You two chat here. I will do the packing downstairs. He hurriedly ran out of the door, not minding our chuckles. He was indeed a house dad. Packing up everything needed in such a short time was indeed difficult. He was going to be busy all day long. Good thing there were storage devices. We won't have much luggage. Looking around the room, I sighed in remorse. I was going to leave this house for the first time. The house that I lived in ever since I could remember. I was going away from that very place. Mom saw the look in my eyes and sighed helplessly. Another smile painted on her face. Don't worry, Ian. We can come here whenever we want. This is our home too. In fact, this would be our fourth home. She chuckled and shook her head. We will visit the other two when you grow up a bit. Until then, we will be in the capital. In the house I lived ever since I know. Your dad and I lived in the same house before coming here. You will love it. Looking at her happy face, a smile appeared on my face as well. Ok. Hugging her gently, I returned to Tully. Familiar was more than just your pet. It was a partner, a friend, family, one that stayed by your side forever. The bond between familiar and master held great value in this world. That was the reason. Having a familiar was a big deal. You aren't the one that chooses them, neither they are the ones to choose you. It isn't a one-sided thing. When you meet that one beast, you would naturally know that you are the one. It's a bit romantic, like some love at first sight. And here, the love happens on both sides. Not some one-sided love, but two parties falling in love at first sight. Some people may not find the one they are looking for forever in their life. Some may find it in unique, unknown situations, like falling from a cliff or drowning in the ocean. The affinity of an element also plays a big role in this matter. If you are someone with fire affinity, your familiar will also be one with a fire affinity. The attraction toward each other is greatly different. Tully was a wind element energy beast, so her master will definitely have high wind affinity. Most mages only had one or two natural affinities, so they had much less difficulty finding a familiar. Mages like Dad and me who have 3 or more natural elemental affinities have a great range of options. And that is the reason we can't connect with beasts of only one element. We could definitely play with them just like Tully, but the bond of familiar would never be forged. This is the reason Dad still didn't have a familiar. He had seen, met, and killed many energy beasts, but he never found the one he could connect with. Hopefully, Dad could find one in the future. I tickled the large eagle under its neck and it laughed slowly. Tully may be a yellow, ranked energy beast in her fully grown form. She was just a baby of my age right now. Books said the great wind eagle are rare birds who mainly reside in southern regions of the continent. They grow big enough in 15 years that the masters could travel on their back. I wanted to ride on its back too, but that thoughts now had to go away. Just like Tully. Mom tied a small letter on her leg and we said our goodbyes to her. As soon as it jumped off the window and opened its large wings, a strong wind engulfed the ground. Just like a passing wind, Tully disappeared and everything quieted down. Turning back, I faced Mom. Let's go, Mom. We should help Dad. She chuckled and shook her head. She knew I would say this. Holding my hand, Mom and I walked out with bright smiles. Hugh, everything is ready. Brian was exhausted from all the packing and sorting stuff. In the quiet kitchen, a small breeze flowed from the open door behind him. Ian was playing outside now that we were done with everything. It was afternoon and the sun was about to set in some time. In the middle of the kitchen, on the large round table, 6 different cubes were placed with a small note stuck on them. Having a storage device was a blessing. I didn't know where to put all of Ian's books and materials without them. There wasn't any need to take them with us. He already knew everything about them. And saying this was now so natural to me that I didn't even notice. Even Brian had more stuff than me. It filled 2 whole large storages. We could easily store a carriage worth of things in one of these, and these 2 took 3 of these to themselves. With some important stuff and small things as well as one of my cubes full of important documents, we ended up using 6 whole cubes. Each one of them was worth 300 gold coins. If we say 10 gold coins are enough for a normal family to live for a month, these cubes were worth 1.5 years of their all expenses. Every storage device was sold at a very high price. Even the one Ian was currently using, though the most basic one with the smallest space, was worth 100 gold coins. If there was a skill stone, like Brian's item box, it might go as high as 900 gold or 1 platinum coin, and people would fight like crazy for each one of them. A smile spread out on my face as I thought about people fighting to buy something at an auction house. It has been a long time since I returned to my auction house. My family wasn't the only one waiting for my return to the capital. Countless people were waiting for us. For the Cold Demoness, for Auction Master of Harani, and the one that framed me would be waiting for Guild Leader of Farron Merchant Alliance. I would love to see the expression of those pigs when they see me. Many will be happy and many will cry. It will be fun. Nolan, calm down. You are releasing too much authority. You might feel weak. As I heard Brian's panicked voice, I came back to the present. In the heat of that moment, I had unconsciously used some of my power. It was good that he was here, or else I might have to sleep early today, which would be a problem for me at least. I had some plans for tonight which he didn't know. He was just genuinely worried about me. Giving him a cute smile, I sat down. He was busy making some kind of list, so he returned to it. He was walking in the room left and right, thinking if anything was missing. But then, his foot accidentally collided with a chair and he dropped his note. With a frustrated expression, he mumbled under his breath, "Wait, shit." I heard that very clearly for an unknown reason, and a playful smirk appeared on my face. He looked at my face and his eyes widened. "No," he said, taking a step back. A cold shiver might have run down his spine as he shook slightly. I stood up and walked closer to him. "I mean it. Ian is just outside too." Now there were small drops of sweat on his forehead. This was getting more cute as I took the next step. He stopped as he bumped into the wall behind him. Standing just before him, I stood up on my toes. He was taller, and that was making this even more exciting. With a low hum, and a smile only he knew very well, I got in his face. A pink blush appeared on his clear cheeks. Putting a hand right under his chin, I lifted that pretty face. As I leaned much closer to his ears, he closed his eyes and tightly shut his lips. "Bayum, Bayum." My heart was going to jump out in the heat of the moment. But now wasn't the time. Just before his ear, I whispered in a very low voice, "Let's have some ice cream today." I pulled myself back and returned to my seat. When nothing happened for at least 5 seconds, he opened one of his eyes only to find me sitting away from him. An even bigger blush appeared on his face as he understood what just happened. Picking up his list, he stomped out of the room all red and pink. I laughed loudly enough that Ian picked from the door only to find me laughing with almost tears. I looked at him with cracked eyes and he just shook his head and returned to playing. Our last day in this house was going very eventually. Putting a hand on my belly, I sighed. There will be another one to laugh with within our big family. Ian was unique ever since I could remember. Not everyone was like him, but that was just who he was. He was going to become a big brother, one more person for him to protect. He was happy, maybe more than both of us. That joy, those feelings were part of his uniqueness. We were happy if he was happy. And I could finally be of some help to him when we get back. He could have anything he wanted there, as long as it wasn't dangerous. In Roxana Empire's capital, great city of Gwyneth, was our first home. In the largest city which is believed to be blessed by gods themselves. I was one of the people that could buy almost anything they wanted there. And resources are always necessary for one to grow stronger. Though I was still worried about him as always, I won't be helpless there. I smiled delightfully as I put my head on the table. "Ian, wake up. We have to depart soon," I whispered in his ears. After a moment of rolling in the bed, he cracked open his eyes. As soon as he saw me, his eyes widened in an instant. "Mom, are we late?" He jumped up in bed, shouting in his cute voice. I grabbed his hands to calm him down, and he calmed down pretty fast. "We aren't late at all. Let's get ready and go downstairs. Dad will be finished with the breakfast in a bit." He happily nodded his head and jumped down from the bed. Leaving him alone, I walked downstairs. When I entered the kitchen, Brian was serving the plates on the table. Looking at him with a sly smile, I said in a low voice, "Ay, honey. Yesterday was fun, wasn't it?" A somewhat sad expression clouded his face at that moment. Surprised, I asked in a bit louder voice than before, "Is something wrong?" He looked around the very familiar kitchen with a sad smile. "I will miss this." I understood this sadness of his. I shared the same feelings, maybe more than him. As a mother who has watched her child grow up in this same place, I was also a bit sad to leave. But it's not like we won't come back here ever, right? This will always be our second home. He looked up at me and smiled. Walking forward, he hugged me gently. I hugged him back. This was going to be our last breakfast in this house, and we won't be able to come back for a long time. Just then, we felt another small hug. We knew who it was, so we just stayed like this for a bit. And I knew these two fools won't let me go, so I had to let them go this time. I sat on my chair and ordered them to sit down. We had to depart now, can't have the carriage wait for much longer. After finishing the food, which was quick considering their emotional state, we walked out to the front door. "Good morning, young miss. Master Brian, and oh, you must be young Master Axion. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." A middle-aged man was standing beside the large carriage. The carriage was simple and wasn't fancy. The only thing special about them were the beasts pulling the carriage. Blaze Wind Horse, also known as red horses. They were special beasts. If one didn't know, they might take them as normal horses. But in reality, this pair of horses were more fast, strong, and rare than other horses. A smile spread out on my face as I saw the familiar, normal-looking uncle. He was our family's head stable keeper. My brother and I used to play around in stables when we were kids, and he played with us there. Seeing him after such a long time was really good. I smiled and started introducing him to Ian. "Ian, this is Uncle Besnick. He is taking care of your uncle and me ever since we were kids. Uncle Besnick, this is my pride, joy, and love, Ian." Ian looked at him, but his focus was on the horses ever since we stepped outside. Uncle Besnick smiled warmly as he looked at him. "Young master, do you want to meet them?" Ian's eyes widened and a big smile appeared on his face. "Can I do that?" he asked vigorously. "Of course. Here, let me introduce them." They played with horses with smiles across their faces. Ian loved these beasts, and strangely, these beasts also liked him. Just like right now, the red horses known for their difficult personalities were playing with him happily. This even surprised Uncle, who had taken care of many troublesome beasts in our stables. Indeed, just like Master said, young Master Axion is amazing. He is the best. As his mom, whenever I heard someone praise him, I get happy. Indeed, with such natural affinities, he could become a master tamer in a short time. And whenever someone says that he is more amazing than I know, my heart twitches weirdly. As his mom, I was worried much more than anything. But after everything until now, I had adapted myself to those situations. Indeed, he is amazing, but we can't decide anything for him. He already has a goal. Dad must have told you, right? Of course he did. That's why the young master is more amazing than the master said. He chuckled and opened the door of the carriage. "Let's go. If we are late, the master will scold me." With a tired smile, I looked back at our home. It was a long time, but we enjoyed it more than anything.
Ok, Mum.
"Let's go." Ian pulled my hand from the right and Brian pulled my left hand. Giving our home one last look, we boarded the carriage. Something new was about to start. The capital city of Gwynedd was the largest city on the entire continent. Founded in ancient times, the city survived and expanded from a town to a kingdom and is now the strongest empire on this continent. Empire held a large amount of possible land on the continent. Except the two forbidden zones by its side, the empire held a large amount of land and the neighboring countries couldn't say anything. The friendly ties with other nations and heated relations with some other countries were the talk of every history book. But in most parts, they weren't much big of a threat. After the Roxana Empire, demons held most of the land. These places are called Hell Plains and divided into different groups. Aside from them, there isn't any major threat to humans. The distance between the capital and the main city we were headed to was a lot, but thanks to magic and teleportation gates installed in every main city, that distance could be shortened to seconds. Now, we just had to cross this mountain to reach the main city. This journey might also have taken much longer, but thanks to red horses, we might reach our destination by tomorrow night. I was very excited right now. It was almost night and we were going to set up a camp. This would be my first time camping outside. I had never actually camped outside, not on mountains like this. Mom and Dad were naturally experienced in this type of thing. As I looked outside from the large carriage window, I could see trees moving backward. Our current speed was almost as good as a normal train, maybe just a slight slow than a bullet train of old times. The path was straight for now, but Uncle said it would get narrow and rocky by tomorrow. So, resting right now was the best thing. I looked in front of me and smiled. Mom was sleeping soundly without any concern on Dad's shoulder. Dad was just looking at her warmly. She said she would be busy with her work once we reach home for some time. She was angry, worried, relieved, and happy at the same time. I just felt her emotions, not knowing the reason behind them. Dad knew the reason behind all of them, so he was more careful right now. It wasn't anything I had to concern myself with, according to them, so I, as always, didn't ask much about it. The carriage slowed down a bit, and after a moment, it stopped completely. I looked outside and there was an open area, a good one to spend the night. I opened the door and ran outside, leaving Mom and Dad alone. Uncle was climbing down from the driver's seat as our eyes met. Giving me a warm smile, he climbed down slowly. Setting the horses free, he walked before me. "So, young master, is this place good?" he asked, still smiling. I don't know what I had done, but he was proud of me? What did I do to make someone like him so impressed? He was a beast tamer. Those who held a natural affinity towards nature itself could tame wild beasts and train them for different works. People like him used nature as its energy source to interact with energy beasts. With enough potential, they could even talk with them. The power of nature was immense, so the extent one could handle that power was fixed by birth. Where mages could train and increase the level of core, origin users could study the origin to gain more understanding to increase its mastery. Those with natural powers like the uncle who used nature as a medium in taming, and Mom who influenced those within the nature with authority, had many limitations. And this wasn't the time to think about that stuff. "Yes, this place looks good," I answered his question while looking around. He nodded, and just then, Mom and Dad also came out. Mom was looking good. She was happy, unlike some time ago, and the reason could be seen on Dad's red face. Everyone should get their own great ideas of why I ran out first. Walking closer, Mom handed Uncle a red, translucent crystal ball. He nodded and walked into the center of the open area. Checking the area, he nodded his head and buried the crystal ball and came back. Mom looked at Dad and he flinched in surprise. Opening his hand in front of him, a pure white wand appeared in his hand. Closing his eyes, he focused mana on the tip of the wand. This mana was more refined and precise than when he used magic without it. Indeed, wands were very important in a mage's life, I thought as I looked at it with delight. With great materials and the best craftsmen, you could make the best possible wand for yourself. But that was for mages. And I wasn't a mage. I was a magic archer, so I had to have a magic bow. They were just like a mage's magic wand, but the only difference between them was a large range to choose from. Yes, I could gather materials and find the best craftsmen, but there was an option of other pre-made bows. Dad made his pure white magic wand with a branch of mana tree. They weren't actually a tree that grew in someplace. They remained, left after a strong, magical disaster. Known as nature's wrath, there were many such things that happened all over the world. The reason for them was mostly unknown. As I looked back to where the crystal ball was, my eyes widened. A dark red barrier started expanding out of it. It covered almost half of the entire area and then stopped just before my nose. "Let's go!" Mom excitedly shouted and ran inside the barrier. It was a much stronger and more powerful barrier than what Dad would make during fireworks. This might be one of those pre-coded spells which took almost zero mental power when casting magic. Though the amount of mana required is a bit great, it can be neglected. Safety came first in anything. We were in a jungle which was before a rocky mountain. Mom won't take any risks in these types of situations. We entered the barrier and set out a large camp with the things Dad brought for the camping. They filled one of the 6 storage devices we had. And that was actually too much. Dad was overprepared for something like this. It seemed like he was planning to set up a temporary house, but Mom scolded him. They came to some sort of agreement, and with a new pink blush, Dad finished the preparations. "I will cook," I shouted excitedly when it was almost dinner time. Uncle had a surprised look, but when he saw that neither Mom nor Dad easily disagreed with that, he shook his head. I saw him sigh a smile when I started my preparations. I was going to make the same chicken stew Dad made last time, a bit differently. His version was hot and spicy, and I was going to make a hot and sweet version. I was better at sweet and salty flavors, while Dad was best with salty and spicy flavors. Sweet was my strength while cooking. I took out some eggs, already prepared meat, cream, vegetables, and some other ingredients like flour and spices. With a very delicate and perfect temperature, I cooked it for a while, and when it was almost about time to take a look, I opened the lid on the metal pot. A warm, sweet aroma spread out around the whole barrier. I bet if the sweet, mouth-watering smell were to leak out of this, the nearby beasts would come running. This was the first time I had made this one. I always wanted to try it but never got the chance. Today was the perfect opportunity to make this one. Mom and Dad were now numb to my surprise, but Uncle was shocked and stiff. He couldn't believe his nose. I tasted the thicker stew than what Dad would make with a delighted expression. It was perfect. They were going to love this one. I served it with Dad's help and we all sat down. Looking with anticipation, Uncle took his first spoon and melted. It was obviously delicious. Young Master's unique cooking was talk of the house. Now that I'm actually tasting it, it's really amazing. The things I make are new to this world, but the uniqueness it holds is something great. Mom and Dad had the same expression they had when eating something I made for the first time. Ever since I started cooking, they are the first ones to taste anything I make. Sometimes it turns out perfect, sometimes it's a disaster. But they even tasted those disastrous dishes that I hesitated to taste myself. They were just amazing. It was my duty to teach Mom and Dad how I made everything so that they could do their own things with that. Dad would try to cook it while Mom would try to find its market value if it's sold. And yes, Mom's cooking was disaster. Let's not talk about that today. We had some small work here to wrap up after cooking, and before going back for sleep we had to do cleanup. Tomorrow is a good and long day, so taking a good rest is important. I thought I would fall asleep as soon as I fall on that new soft cushion. A carriage was running on narrow, rocky mountains at a very fast speed. 2 red horses were pulling the carriage, and their brown-red hair were dancing with their rapid speed. The one driving this carriage wasn't bothered by this, as if he was accustomed to an even faster speed. There was a strange frown on his face right now. There was a thick silence on the road. He had traveled many times on this path, but it was never this quiet. Sound of wind blowing, leaves dancing, water running from the nearby river. Sometimes energy beasts would jump before you unexpectedly. There were a lot of different sounds of creatures. At the very least, there are some sounds of them from the side every now and then. But right now it was very spooky. The whole area was dead quiet. Except the sound of horses running and rolling of wheels, there was nothing. Even the air was dead calm. Something was very wrong. Inside the carriage, clenching my hand around my heart, I looked at Mom and Dad with wide, horrified eyes. Everything was going perfectly fine until we entered the Rocky Mountain path. It was quite noisy back then, but then voices started quieting down. And as the rocky hill started, everything was quiet. Even the air seemed strangely heavy. And At exactly that moment, my heart suddenly almost jumped out of my chest. This was a strange feeling, as if my body was screaming for me to run away from here. My face paled, and sweat ran down my back. As they looked at me, they knew something was wrong. Just a moment ago, we all were sitting comfortably, laughing at how Dad was like a baby himself. Even Uncle, who chimed in between us every now and then, was silent. What the hell was I feeling right now? Just then, Dad stood up and jerked his head in front of us. This was so sudden that even Mom was surprised by this. Dad narrowed his eyes. A strange atmosphere started to feel around him. Bloodlust. I hurriedly grabbed his hand, and Mom did the same. We both understood what was going around us on with this behavior. He came back to his senses and looked at both of us, and sat down by my side. Mom came and sat on the other side. A demon. I mumbled under my breath, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. They are the enemies of all other races. Known for their magical abilities, they are beings that always go against nature. They destroy nature and make good places like this mountain into their disgusting base. They are corrupted evil beings. They don't have an ounce of feelings towards other races. The only thing they seek is the destruction of nature and every being living inside it. They only care for themselves and do whatever they want. Power is everything for them. You either serve some other demon with a higher power or get stronger yourself. That is what their life is. They will do anything if it means they would get stronger. They get stronger from death, suffering, and chaos. And taking down a path connecting the main city and a small border town was not a bad idea. Everything was okay on their side. But why did it have to be now? Just when I was going to my new home. Just when I was going to become a big brother. Just when... Don't worry. Dad held my hand a little tighter. Mom also tightened her grip on my hand. I released a long breath and held them back with whatever strength I can. In terms of total strength, I was already much stronger than an average human. At least as strong as a rank 1 knight. The ranking of knights was different from mages, where mages were directly ranked based on the tier of their mana nucleus. Knights were different. Starting from rank 1, knight who holds exceptional physical abilities among normal humans. If we say a normal human's average stats are mostly 10 to 15, then a rank 1 knight has average physical stats around 25. Rank 3 knights can use the aura, one of the most powerful and common energies on the continent. From there, it's divided into classes like chess pieces. Rank 4 being horse. They can not only coat the weapon with aura, but they can also cover their whole body with it. Rank 5 being tower. They can fire pure aura like magic. Rank 6 being bishop. They can materialize aura into a weapon that they could control however they want. Rank 7 being queen/king. They are as strong as an elder magician in terms of power. They all have their own special way of using aura. It could be either creating a large number of weapons or a single powerful armor. There were rank 8 and rank 9, but I didn't know about them. So I was a strong and pretty boy. I can help them if needed, and if they could let me. I knew already that they won't let me get hurt in any way, but I can't see them getting hurt either. I think they are just up ahead. Uncle spoke from the small window of the driving seat and slowed down the carriage. I will help. Mom and Dad looked at me and sighed. They can see the look in my eyes, and they knew I wasn't going to back down. They had to take me even if they didn't want to. It might be better to help them there than be here sitting inside some barrier. Stay close to us. Always. Mom was worried sick right now. Everyone had only one concern on their minds right now. Demons. Whatever was out there was definitely a noble demon. I haven't felt their presence before, but I could guess from the pressure in the air. And my heart was jumping inside my chest. God knows why. This strange feeling was something that I only got when using my origin skill. Was there something wrong with it? It was strange, but this wasn't the time or place to think about things like that. Who? Releasing a long breath, I nodded at Dad. We had something dangerous ahead of us. The trip, which was going to be a smooth, fun ride, was now going to turn into a bitter battle. A bloody one. And that blood won't be ours. I hoped as we exited the carriage. Mom had the grimmest expression I had seen her make. Things had turned out very ugly at a very wrong place and time. Clear, narrow road, filled with gray-black rocks. Gray clouds cover the sky. Open areas on both sides, and some places were filled with piles of rocks. As if someone was digging in this mountain path for a long time, the piles of rock and dust were big. There wasn't much color left in this place, as the only color here left were black and gray. No blue sky, no green trees and grass, not even brown earth remained. Some creatures with humanoid forms were doing something in groups of 3 by these holes. Their skin was red and green, teeth long and pointed like a shark. Their bodies were covered by some thin brown clothes. Some were digging the rocky ground, and some were placing a strange black crystal inside them. Each group had a creature with yellow marks on its hand, which were supplying the black crystals with a dark fog. The fog was thick and sticky, almost disgusting to even look at. Another creature was floating in the sky above them. As if examining them, it circled around them. It was surveying them carefully. With a large figure, a skull that looked like a mixture of bull and lizard. Its bull horns on the large white skull were total black. It had long fingers on both its hands and legs. The knife-like sharp nails were most terrifying about it. There was black fur covering its entire body, which looked more like armor. Feeling a small headache, I turned off my skill. We were currently far away from this group of demons. In fights with strong opponents, you never charge mindlessly. Knowing about your opponent before the battle was a good thing, and my skill shined in this way the most. Recon and info gathering in the field. Perfect like a ranger. As my vision returned to normal, I explained everything to them. They had a different expressions as they heard everything I said. Anger, fear, and tension were visible on Mon and Uncle's face. With a sharp nod, Dad started speaking. That flying one is definitely a noble. Seeing that there are undead-type demons, it doesn't seem to be a higher-ranking noble. Maybe a baron. Its demonic energy isn't that high for a baron, though? Yes. It is a newly ascended baron. Looks like it's establishing its first territory. He spoke in great detail, anger, and hatred visible in his every moment. That bastard isn't that strong compared to a finely established noble. Still, it's strong. Judging by your description, its specialty seems to be fire, the most common demonic specialty. Its armor-like body protects it from its own flames, and physical attacks won't work on it much. Water magic will be best in this situation. He nodded and looked at us one by one. Sir Besnick, we will take on the noble. You will support me with red horses. Ian and Nolan, stay back and take out the undead zombie demons. Light magic is best against them. Do not get close to us or the holes they have dug. They are dangerous, and that crystal is most definitely a portal device. If it's completed, it will directly link to other hell planes. He was very serious. He was acting totally different than I had ever seen him. The weight of this situation was that great. It was great enough to cost any of our life in the worst-case scenario. If there was any other child of my age, the situation might not be the same with them. Just seeing that horrible demon was enough to make them unconscious. Not everyone could bear a demon's pressure, and the fear after seeing one in person. I can't imagine it for others. But for me, protecting Mom, Dad and Uncle were more important than worrying about the unknowns. Dad saw the determination in my eyes and chuckled. Uncle did the same, and Mom, she just smiled a little. I could feel her emotions. She was afraid right now. Afraid to think the worst. Afraid to see us getting hurt. She was afraid and angry. The pressure around her was showing her anger clearly. I grabbed her and she looked down at me. Mom, don't worry. We will be fine. Dad and I will protect both of you. As if she had just realized something, she caressed her belly with a gentle hand. Dad smiled and nodded. Uncle looked surprised, shocked even. There was an unrealistic smile on his face. But he shook his head and got back to his serious expression. Mom smiled and nodded at us. From now on, we had to be on high alert, worrying about unexpected situations and unknown surroundings. There might be some things that I didn't see too. Taking everything into account and planning the best strategy was the right thing. Dad was going to fight that Baron-ranked demon alone. The red horses had some fire element skills which would be used to clear the area, rather than fighting it. Even for someone like Dad, who had a great experience in hunting demons, a Baron was a tough opponent. Though we had the upper hand in overall power, we lacked numbers. If that demon could command its underlings properly, Dad might have a tough fight. Using up all the mana in a large skill would be foolish. We didn't know if there were more enemies around. If something went wrong, he was the only one that could fight properly. He was the strongest person here right now. That was the reason he was bearing the greatest responsibility. I knew neither of them would forgive themselves if anything were to happen to me. But if something were to happen to them, I knew I won't be able to forgive myself. I looked down with a calm expression and took a deep breath. "Ian, take this," Mom said from behind me. I turned around with surprise and saw what she was talking about. There was a bow in her hand, which she had just pulled out of her artifact. A blue bow almost as tall as me. It was different from a normal bow that I had used in the past. It was unique and had different strange patterns engraved in white on its body. Its ends had a sharp curve with the white designs ending on it. The handle was bright yellow, very eye-catching. After studying it in her hand for a moment, my eyes widened when I thought of a possibility. "Mom, this? It was supposed to be your birthday present, but just take it. We will think about other things later." She handed me the bow with a warm smile. This was no ordinarily strong bow, and I knew very well how I was going to use this. After another small discussion, we walked towards the enemy. My heart never stopped beating weirdly the entire time I was here. What the hell was wrong with it? Uncle and Dad slowly closed in on the noble demon with a high-level stealth skill. The horrible-looking demon followed a circular path, so for some time, it was away from the other undead beasts. Mom and I stood at the very back of the first group of zombies. As Dad and Uncle got close to the demon noble, it flinched in the midair. Turning back its skull face, it opened it and smiled. "Oh, we have some great ingredients for my new home." "Huh? Getting to this place was tough, but now that we have such amazing things, it will be very easy. Hello, puny ants. Consider yourself fortunate to gaze upon the mighty form of Baron Bielak. Now, die and be nourishments for my new home." He laughed maniacally and extended his hand forward. A red ball of fire materialized in front of them. The demon raised his hand and threw the fireball at them. Dad just raised his wand and created a dark blue shield. It was a shield of water attribute, but I could see wind attribute on its surface with my mystic eyes. The most I could maintain my skill was 1 minute for now, and after that, it would get cancelled automatically. But it used almost no mana, so I can use it as many times as I wanted. As the large fireball collided with Dad's shield, boom! An explosion rang out in the area and white vapor spread out in the surroundings. As the smoke cleared up, the smiling face of the demon slowly became visible. "Oh, it looks like you are a somewhat strong ant. Huh? Well, it doesn't matter. An ant is an ant." It raised its hand and snapped its long fingers. Snap! The sound spread out in the surroundings, and all the other undead demons in the area raised their heads. "Kill these ants." At the demon noble's command, all the demon undead started running towards them. This was also the signal for us. "Who?" With a calm mind, I took a deep breath, picking up my magic bow and stretched the bowstring. This bow was a little heavy and the bowstring required more strength to pull backward, but it was manageable. It was difficult, but I could get far better results from using it. Gathering the light element mana on my fingers of both hands, I closed my eyes. The white patterns on the bow started glowing a bright yellow color. I closed my eye and materialized 2 arrows of light. Light arrow. A simple materialized light elemental mana shaped in a form of an arrow. I had tried it before, but I couldn't simply process the mana of a certain higher element on my own. On top of that, the light element was the rarest of the main elements, and it was most lethal to undead-type creatures. Now that I had this bow, things were much easier than before. The magic bow, just as any magician's wand, increased the mana conductivity of the body, helped in processing natural mana in the surroundings, and increased the mana pool. It was a very good thing, so having a good wand was really necessary. As the 2 arrows of light materialized, I aimed them at the mage-like demon among the ones running towards Dad. The arrows pierced the bodies of the undead like a laser. A painful scream echoed in the mountain area as 2 zombies fell to the ground. The arrows had passed through their head, so it was a perfect bullseye. Some of the zombies looked at their fallen colleagues as they stopped marching forward. "So we had more ants," the demon said in an intrigued tone, but it looked like it did not care much about us. "Oh, get rid of that little one first then. It will be annoying if he keeps this up," it ordered with a small hand gesture. Demon's voice was heavy, and now there was some seriousness in his red eye-like dot inside his skull. The zombies changed their direction and charged forward in our direction. But they were stopped by a pair of burning horses. 2 red-colored horses with burning body blocked their paths and prevented all of them from coming at us all at once. Some of them, however, managed to pass through them and ran straight towards us. The speed and coordination they showed were not like anything I thought. "Aren't they zombies? Why are they so fast?" I was genuinely shocked. In my previous world, zombies like them were brain-dead undead creatures who only walked around with their arms stretched out. But this bunch in front of me is nothing like them. They are clever, fast, and more impotently they seem strong. The only thing that made them weak right now was my light magic. Thanks to my bow, I was able to shoot 2 arrows every few seconds. Mana wasn't being used much, but the mental power consumption was real fast. If not for Mom handing me potions every once in a while, I might have fainted in a few minutes. It was really interesting to see just how many things could be there in that unique bracelet-like artifact of hers. Not only does she have many other artifacts for the battle for herself ready, but also all types of potions. The fight was long and tiring. Mom and I were doing good at the back, and Dad was doing good with the noble demon. At first, he acted very arrogant and strong, as if he was the strongest thing in the world. But then, as time passed and he faced Dad's heavy water and ice attacks, his expression turned grim. Dad wasn't giving his all right now and only using Tier 4 spells. But the fight couldn't go too long, or else Dad will exhaust his MP. And that might be dangerous. On top of that, it looked like Dad was using up too much of his mana. It was strange, as if his mana was being burned unnaturally. The fight continued with screams and explosions. A large number of zombies were already dead, and there were only 6 of them alive. They were mage-like zombies with weird marks around their bodies. Unlike the first ones, they couldn't be caught off guard. The only way I was able to kill the other 3 was because Mom used her authority to freeze them for a moment. It was difficult, and even Mom knew that, but she continued. From all this unexpected and long use of her power, Mom was on the verge of falling. In the end, even with that many artifacts to increase her concentration and stamina, she was at her limits. I was at my limit too. I had killed 36 zombies already, and after killing them I realized this was my first time killing something. Though technically they weren't alive to begin with. But still, my emotions were very stable and my mind was unnaturally calm. And my heart, that bastard, was the only one acting weird. But right now wasn't the time to think about unnecessary stuff. I was tired, Mom was exhausted. Uncle was the same as Mom and Dad. He was furious. I didn't know what was going on over there, but it was definitely a bad situation. "You freaking son of a bitch! This is enough!" Dad shouted in a very angry voice and pointed his wand straight at the demon. The fight was strangely easier than expected for it, and it wasn't that bad of a situation before. But Demon's face turned grim when he felt the tremendous killing intent coming out of Dad. It turned his body abruptly to fly away from here, but before it could do that, a sky-blue barrier covered him entirely. Pushed it and slammed at it, horrified to even think of anything. When nothing happened, Demon covered its large, razor-sharp claws in a strange purple fire and attacked the barrier with all his might. The barrier bumped and reacted to it, and then a ripple spread out from that part like a stone falling in the water. Fortunately, the barrier didn't break, but the last remaining hope in the demon's eyes vanished. Three twofold dark blue magic circles appeared inside the barrier and started rotating like a fan at a very fast speed, and a small screeching noise rang out. After that, a blue light shot out from one of the circles, pierced the demon's skin like my magic arrows, and then all three of the magic circles shot these water rays. This wasn't a magic spell, but the strangest water attribute skill Dad had. Aqua Laser, a green, ranked skill that focused on attacking the tired or immobile opponent. The demon had no way of breaking the Tier 5 barrier Dad put before him. Water pierced its body and multiple holes appeared in its already disgusting body. Black blood splashed out of its body but didn't leave the barrier. After a minute, the unrecognizable remains of the demon's body parts slowly landed on the ground. The barrier popped like a bubble and black blood splashed out around a hole they had dug themselves. Dad fell to his knees, exhausted from the long, tiring fighting. It was still strange that he was that exhausted. There was also some kind of backslash from using the skill. I also focused my attention on the zombies. We finished the remaining 6 zombies that were in utter chaos now that their master was dead. But there was a very dangerous thing about this situation. Technically, the demon wasn't dead yet. We had to remove the core from its body before the noble demon could regenerate. But after those fatal injuries, it would take quite some time to recover fully. It was as good as dead. That's what we thought until the body of the demon slid into the hole and a black light appeared out of it. It was a sinister black light that had much more power than the demon itself. A round portal suddenly opened right before our eyes. Behind it was a huge green forest with giant trees. I felt something very strange for a moment. It was as if someone was looking down on me. I had a very bad feeling about this as my body moved on its own after a moment of confusion. Everyone was still staring at the forest as if mesmerized by its brilliance. But I didn't have time to even look that way. As soon as I reached Dad's side, black tentacle-like hands came out of the hole. I didn't know what these things were, and there was no way this was from the half-dead demon. The black tentacles wanted to grab Dad, but I threw him to another side with some strong wind. But it grabbed me. This unexpected situation could have been more dangerous. A strange illusion, some strange tentacles, and the strange draining of mana I was feeling right now were unreal. All of this had happened in a matter of 9 seconds, and in the 10th second, everyone came back to their senses. A horrified expression clouded everyone's eyes as they looked at me. They were confused and chaotic about what just happened. It could have been a skill of that damn demon that somehow didn't affect me that much as I only stayed still for 3 seconds. Ian! Mom shouted and Dad tried to grab the tentacles to release me. But it wasn't of any use as his legs gave up because of the skill's backlash. On the gray mountain roads, only the screams of 3 people echoed. A devastated mother, a helpless father, and a horrified middle-aged man. I was being slowly dragged into that portal and everyone was already exhausted. The only thing they could possibly do was scream and cry. For Dad, taking even a step was difficult. This was one of the worst-case scenarios and I couldn't even say anything in this matter. This whole ordeal had turned into a cringe, cliché story. And the last thing that came to mind was even more cliché. Looking at Mom with my somewhat assuring smile, I requested her in tear-filled cracking words. Mom, I will come back. Take care of Dad and baby by then. With those last words, he was dragged away into that portal which closed in an instant behind me. This all happened in a mere 30 seconds and they were utterly helpless. Nolan and Brian screamed, cried, and shouted in agony. They couldn't do anything when their son was taken away from them. Silence. Chaotic silence. A shock that was great enough to break a heart. In a slowly driving small carriage, 2 people sat with utter silence. Their eyes were red and swollen, darkness under their eyes. The man was quiet and anger was oozing out of his body. The beautiful woman still had tears on the edges of her eyes, struggling to hold their ground. She was devastated right now. She had seen her son being dragged away by some filthy half-dead demon. Helplessly. They had won the battle, but the fight wasn't a victory at all. It was the greatest, bitterest and nastiest defeat of their entire life. It was a story others would love to read. But for them it was utterly despairing. Their son saved his father, sacrificing himself as he would always claim he would do. He protected him and in the process, disappeared somewhere dangerous. They lost their son. They lost him because of their incompetence. They lost him because of their carelessness and because they were still weak. They regretted, agonized, and cried in that same place for a long, long time. If not for the driver Besnik dragging them away from the polluted place, they might have just stayed like that. The battle was easy, and if they had finished it swiftly, nothing like this could have transpired. But they neglected something. That damn demon had an illustration skill powerful enough to influence someone like them. Though it was unbelievable that their son was able to resist that skill, it wasn't the point right now. The portal that the demon had opened at the last moment of his life was totally unstable. Its location can't be tracked now that it was closed. That demon had used most of its energy to drag their son away. So wherever he was, he could easily kill that bastard with his own hands. They didn't know about the other 6-year-old child, but Axion, their son, could definitely pull that off. He had already killed many undead creatures without feeling any kind of feeling toward them. This was also something different, something unique about him. If anything, they knew he was not dead. The worst-case scenario was the demon running away, leaving him in an unknown place like that forest. As for that forest, they had an idea of where it was. And they prayed, they begged to whoever God that they were wrong. If their guess was somehow indeed correct, they didn't want to think of that clear possibility. That place wasn't something even a human like them could survive. Though they were glad that the portal wasn't connected to Hell Plains, a forbidden place was many times more dangerous than it. Their minds were chaotic and their heart was unstable. Sitting quietly on her seat, Nolan caressed a silver ring with a small crystal ball. It was blinking a bit in red color. Her heart might not have taken it calmly like right now in the past, but the situation was different right now. This ring might be the only link to find out if he was alive or not. Hopefully, Ian was still safe. She closed her eyes and another crystal-like tear slid down her cheeks. In a great forest with trees that seemed so tall that the sky was almost invisible. Green leaves and green trunks covered by thick moss. There were many small plants and fungus-like mushrooms which were glowing. Small lights illuminated the green and brown colors of the forest. Different sounds native to a forest like some birds, some animal movement, and the rustling of leaves were calming. In an open area in the middle of this forest, a small pool of black blood was slowly evaporating. A gross pile of body parts and organs was twitching in the middle of this pool. A boy was laying in a distance, holding his chest as if having a heart attack. His eyes were larger, pupils wide. His face was pale and his whole body was covered in white light. A black orb was lying beside him with a blue bow that was stained with blood on one side. After a moment, the movements of the body in the black blood stopped. The body part of the demon disappeared and the black blood slowly got absorbed in the soil. There was no corruption in the area, and the only thing with demonic energy left there was the core laying beside the bow. I shouted as the pain in my chest intensified. This was my first time feeling such pain, but this pain was different. It didn't hurt, and instead, I felt warm. My whole body was heated as if I was taking a sunbath for a very long time. My heart was beating senselessly. When it started at the beginning of the fight, I didn't think much about it. But after being dragged here by that damn demon, it increased many times. The demon almost succeeded in subduing me, but I couldn't die. Not here by that foolish demon, nor by any other thing in this strange forest. I had to survive. I had to go back to my family. I knew they will wait for me however long it would take. Dying by some filthy demon wasn't an option. And as soon as I overcame that last bit of uncertainty and pulled out its core, the heat intensified. As if my heart was melting and regenerating, the pain continued for the next 5 minutes. I was mostly calm during this whole time, lying on the cold ground which had warmed because of the heat from my body. Pain suddenly triggered when I tried to move my body. Staying totally still was difficult to the point it seemed impossible. Even breathing too deeply triggered that pain. For 5 whole minutes I went through hell. Calm and warm hell. When this all ended, I felt rejuvenated. There was no pain, no injuries, no fatigue, and not even fear. I felt clear just like any normal situation. Even though I was in an unknown dangerous forest, I was calm. My mind was working better and I could even think of many different ideas at once. My mind was sharper and my emotions were constant. Confused, I called out my status window. Status window equals 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 equals. Name, Axion Cromit. Age 5. Strength, 26. Dexterity, 27. Stamina, 28. Magic power, 30. Intelligence, 33. Luck, 26. Charm, 18. Skill, energy circulation. Origin skill, Sun's blessing, beginner mastery. Mystic eyes, stage 1. Dynamic heart, stage 1. Equals 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 equals. My eyes silently stared at now a faint yellow status window. Before this change, it was a normal and plain white. It was translucent and not much special. But the one in front of me looked a bit more attractive. Is it because of this new skill? I thought and silently stared at the screen. I looked at the new screen in front of me. Many unexpected things were happening right now which left me with many questions. Why would the screen, which is a natural phenomenon, get a different form after increasing the mastery of an origin skill? Is it really because of the increase in mastery, or is there some other reason? Why did my mastery of skill increase so suddenly? Was it because of encountering a demon? What are these origin skills anyway? There were many questions, but right now the most important one was, why the hell ants are so big here? I was running with all my strength. When I was checking my screen, 3 ants appeared out of nowhere. Trying to fight them in a head-on fight was not possible right now. They were strong and I knew that. I had recovered from the fight with the demon, but I was still inexperienced in real fights. And my opponents were neither weak nor few. Fighting these giant steel ants in a disadvantageous fight was the last thing I wanted to do. Though I was in a disadvantageous situation, I wasn't worried at all. The new origin skill I unlocked a while ago was something very helpful. Dynamic heart increased the control over my mind, increasing the decision-making easy. Calmed my mind like it was the same in every situation. My mind was clear right now and I knew what I had to do. This was an amazing skill and probably the most important one to survive in a place like this. Getting it in such a situation was also very mysterious. This forest wasn't some normal forest that anyone could visit or should visit. Just from the humongous trees and the sheer number of rare herbs I passed through, and most noticeably, the demon blood that didn't pollute the place, I could tell. I was in a worst-case scenario. Great Forest of Kamet, one of the 9 forbidden domains in this world. A forest with the most energy beasts. That damn demon was so unlucky that he had to send himself to one of the worst places for himself. Demons despised nature, and their only objective was to destroy it at all costs. They would do anything to harm nature, and beings living inside nature would try to stop them every time. All beings residing in this nature were part of it. And this forest held a great deal in this nature, just like other forbidden domains. The power of nature was the strongest in these forbidden domains, which was the reason demons despised these places. And even if they despised it, demons can't separate themselves from it. They created hell planes, but those were also somewhat part of this nature. The ultimate objective of all the demonic creatures and people related to them was the destruction of nature and everything in it. There were many other races in this world, but everyone hated demons, and the same went for demons. Even some of the divine beasts that were one of the closest beings in this nature went after them willingly. Divine beings loathed the sheer existence of demons, but strangely, they couldn't exterminate them. And the reason behind this was the great balance. Nature decided a great dividing line between the existence of all creations. Demons, though unnecessary, were required in order to maintain this great balance. Some books say that everything happening inside this world is by the will of this world. Will of the world. Very few is known about it, but this will is the highest existence in this world. The will is not actually being someone else but the world itself. I don't know much about that, so before I encounter something more dangerous, let's kill these ants first. There was a large tree just ahead of me. I had used mystic eyes to find this place while running for the last 3 minutes. Now I was ready to take them down. I already know many things about the normal, common, and rare energy beasts from the books. Thanks to my gifted memory, I remembered reading about this ants. They had the body of steel. Their physical strength was also much higher than that of normal humans. But they weren't ranked beasts, meaning that they neither had any fatal magical skills nor more than 30 MP. To at least be ranked red. I was lucky to have some fire enchantment arrows with me, which were strong against their metallic bodies. Confusing and losing them was the first thing to do right now. They were exceptionally good at teamwork. Together, they were more than some red-ranked beasts. That's why I chose this place. I climbed up the closest branch of this large tree which divided the path into 2 different ways. As I was way ahead of them, I was successful in confusing them. If they were solder-ranked ants with detection skills, I might be dead by now. Fortunately, they were the lowest-ranked workers who collected the food for the colony. I would really hate to even go close to them. Luckily, I was safe for the time. Taking out 3 arrows with close to Tier 2 enchantments, I aimed them one by one at their weak spot. They had already gone different ways to find the food that had escaped their grasp and had their guards lowered. 3 arrows flew at the joints of their body and pierced their head. Their claws like mouths vibrated as the fire from the arrow entered their bodies, burning them internally. The arrow had gone deep inside them, so the effect was more amazing. It was all thanks to the magic bow and my newly increased stats. It definitely wasn't a miracle to increase the mastery of my origin skill the moment I entered this place. Were places like this beneficial to increase the origin skill as well? I thought and looked down. They definitely were great for a mage, as the mana density was superb here. At the risk of possibly losing your life, you can come and train here. Yes, you will get lost and eternally trapped in here, but what can we say? There actually were some people like them. Very few have been able to escape from these forbidden domains, and those people were either extremely strong or unbelievably lucky. Now all I had to do was become one of them. And since luck is not reliable in my case right now, I have to get strong enough to escape. I knew my idea was laughable and foolish, but there was a possibility that I could go home. Go back to my family, and I wasn't going to miss this. I had to survive this great hell. I had to walk ahead to find a path to go back. I had to return to them at all costs. I made a promise to my dear mom. With tears in my eyes and a still calm mind, I jumped down. Dad had told me about his old days as an adventurer and what they did. He even taught me how to find the core and skill stones after the hunt. Dad literally taught me how to dissect the body of different beasts. Yes, it was just some stories and theoretical knowledge, but he forgot to consider me as a 5-year-old when teaching it. He talked in a language that number 5-year-old would want to hear or understand, but for me, that was bliss. It was pure fun to hear those gross and gruesome stories from him. Though he never got into much detail, reading his emotions and thoughts was no big deal for Mom and me. So, as his teachings, I ripped the tough shell of the ant after dragging their bodies into a corner. Under the tough armor, there was a tender part like skin in red. Using an arrow, I sliced the body open and checked their bodies. Though the chances of finding a core were something around 1/10,000 and finding a skill stone was 1/100,000. Luck worked here. Strangely, the luck of the person who did the final blow to kill the beast applied to this possibility. It was just like the games from my previous life. This was simple and easy to understand. Just finding a lucky person and making them deal a final blow was enough to strike rich sometimes. But just like taming and authority, luck was natural power. There was no way to increase it by external means permanently. And just having high luck wasn't enough to find these skills or cores every time. The reason strong adventurers like Dad hunted demons was that there was a higher chance to get the cores. Though corrupted, they can be purified and used normally. The one I took out of that barren demon was still inside my pocket, wrapped in a small cloth. I can't risk and put it inside my storage device. My storage device was one of the most important things for my survival right now. As I checked the bodies of the Ents and found nothing, I started butchering them. Though I couldn't eat them, their body parts were useful. I realized another thing just now. Dynamic Heart was crazy useful. I can feel the blood, organs, and insides of these beasts, but I didn't feel disgusted at all. I was still calm, thinking about the best course of action. And the conclusion I came up with after all the time of thinking was finding a safe place. For your survival in a dangerous and unknown land, you first have to adapt to its basic environment. If it's a desert, you have to preserve the water in your body in normal circumstances. If it's a cold place with constant snowfall, you have to protect your body from cold. In a forest, you have to protect your body temperature and be safe from wild predators. And these are in normal circumstances, in normal places, and for normal people. I was none, and my situation was unbelievable too. Not everyone had to run from a large wolf with some chains flying around its body. Shit, dude. Just stop now. I can't kill you even if I want to. I don't know how long I have been running like this, but at least half an hour has passed. It started when I finished butchering the ants. It was a safe place and there was nothing dangerous. But then, I heard some movements. From the other side, a huge wolf with gray fur and silver chains floating around its body jumped on me. It was a very close call. I barely managed to survive there. Fortunately, I didn't get caught there. With whatever I could save in my storage device, I ran with speed enhancement, wind speed, and windshield magic. This wolf was at least an orange, ranked beast from its mana. Not that I had any way of knowing what rank or how powerful this unknown beast was. It would be much easier if I had an appraisal skill like Dad. But where would I find a blue ranked skill stone? Even Dad was extremely lucky to find something like that from an already corpse of an indigo beast. What were the chances that something like that might happen to me? I am not hoping anything like that to happen. It would be a miracle if it happens. Well, I might still get something similar. If I had mystic eyes, then that meant I had a chance to get something of a higher level in Stage 2. An origin skill related to eyes, and in that, having the ability to see your opponent's skills and stat was normal? How should I put this? Most people with origin skill related to eyes had something similar to appraisal in their Stage 2. I knew it would take time, but I believed I could do that. Stage of an origin skill was difficult to raise, and it wasn't actually up to us. It would go up in some unexpected situations like fighting a bloody battle or cooking some food. It was really unexpected. I knew about the sun as a star and how it functioned. If that knowledge was of any use, I can look through it after finding a safe place. But this damn wolf wasn't going to let me go after chasing me for this long time. And why were there chains floating around it? It wasn't even using them. Maybe they were used as a defense or maybe to climb a tree. Damn, they could be just armor to protect the vulnerable body. The wolf had red eyes and it was definitely looking at a prey. This scenario was life-threatening. Running more than this was also a problem. My stamina was about to run out and my mana was depleting with each passing second. I wasn't just mindlessly running. I was scouting ahead with my mystic eyes. My mind was calm, so I was at least thinking straight. And I knew I can't win against that thing as I was right now. I had to somehow lose him. At that moment, I saw something ahead of us with hope-filled eyes. Can I pull that off? What came to my mind was definitely dangerous. Let's give this a try. Worst is my death anyway. I readily made a plan and thought about it for a second time. Biting my lips, I took out a basic stamina potion and downed it. Increasing my speed, I reached an almost dead tree with low branches. Taking out my bow, I shot a black arrow at the other side of the tree and a yellow arrow behind me. A bright light flashed before the wolf and for 3 seconds, it closed its eyes. That time was more than enough for me to climb that tree and reach a somewhat safe space. I knew anything could happen right now, that's why I chose this tree without any leaves. I can hide from them better here than some tree full of leaves and unknown creatures. When the wolf came back to its senses, It looked at a shadow that moved to the left side and followed it. From the left side, another wolf similar to him appeared. Hiding in the shadows, I smiled. My brilliant plan was totally simple. Let the strong fight among themselves. There was a chance that something like this might not work and they might join together to attack me. But from what I saw this last half hour, I knew they were lone wolves. Fighting alone and hunting alone. They didn't like the intruding of others. And they will attack senseless whoever tried to steal their food from them. And just as I thought, the wolf that chased after me bore its teeth at the other wolf. The other wolf jumped backward and looked at the other wolf furiously. The first wolf roared in a hungry, furious voice. Without giving the other wolf any chance, it jumped forward and extended its floating chains. The other wolf was surprised and furious. One blocked it by wrapping the chains around its body. Clank! With a loud crash of metal and blue sparks, the fight between two ferocious dogs begins. One wolf had silver chains, but the other had blue. They only fought with these chains, eyes shining in red. This two didn't even use any claws or teeth in this fight. Their green blood splashed out from the deep wounds around their bodies. The chains contained a sharp wind attribute and their sharpness was no joke. They weren't even actual chains of metal but a passive skill. I only realized that after the chains started integrating after their long battle. Sitting on the tree, I made glass from earth magic and poured some water into it. I was burning after running like that. Cooling the water was also important, so the cool wind decreased the temperature somewhat. The mindless wolves were definitely scary. The way their chains pierced their skin so easily was enough to tell me they were weak without the chains. Time passed and the wolf that chased me all the way here was now laying on the ground, lifeless. The results were as I expected. The chains around its body were gone and no movement could be seen on its body. The other one that had been attacked out of the blue was breathing heavily, fallen on one knee. The chains around its body were also almost gone. But I couldn't take any chances. I took out 3 arrows with green enchantments and aimed them at him. Unknown to my presence, the wolf just stood there in the middle of blood. I channeled some mana into my bow and fingers and released them. The arrows shot forward with a booming sound. In the mid-air, they formed a triangle and then joined together. With more force than before, they struck the pitiful wolf. Blood splashed even more as the arrows had struck the belly part without chains. The wolf fell to the ground. With a pained cry, the half-dead wolf took its last breath. My mind was still calm and my heart was beating equally as it had been. But I felt bad for the wolf. What did he even do to end up dying? I pitied him, but a thought crossed my mind. Survival of the strong, huh? I thought, looking down at it. Dwelling too much on that feeling wasn't something I could do in this place. I had to go back to my family, and to do that, I would do anything possible. Even if I had to kill a village full of monsters. But that was the worst-case scenario. I have to refrain from fighting unnecessary and difficult battles. If there is even a tiny possibility of failure, that fight shouldn't be fought. With those complicated thoughts, I looked around the area to find out if any more beasts were around. Fortunately, there were none so close that they could be dangerous. I quietly jumped on a lower branch, but then my heart started beating wildly. Without thinking, I moved up and casted a shadow curtain around me. I was small and fortunately could fit in a small gap inside the tree. I looked out to see what that strange feeling was, and my eyes widened in surprise, utter disbelief clouding my eyes. I might actually have died without knowing what hit me just now. Giant fire boar. The presence and size of the creature were huge. A 4.5-meter tall black boar, standing tall with its 2 long red fangs stretched outside. The steam coming out of its nose was ferocious. With completely white eyes filled with blank anger, it looked around the area. My heart was calm, but fear filled my mind. This was a green-ranked energy beast, and there was no way in hell I could get even near that thing. Just looking at it from the narrow crack was enough to terrify the hell out of me. Started moving and I calmed down. With calm and slow breathing, I silently looked at its movements. If there was any other beast and it goes back a bit from where it was standing, it could clearly see me hiding in this crack. I was fortunate it was this boar. Their sense of smell was the most developed thing in their giant bodies. Hopefully, I was completely safe and my odor could be masked by the tree and shadows. The boar looked around and found the two bodies of the wolf lying on the other hand. It narrowed its eyes and spotted the arrows in the body of one wolf. There was a different smell about those things. Nothing like the two wolves had. I didn't know what it was doing from up here, but he had definitely seen the arrows. I heard the enraged sound of the creature and grabbed my legs in fear. This was not something I could do by myself right now. If it so much so spots me, I might just consider my life over. I grabbed the sides of the tree tightly. My heart told me something was definitely about to happen to this tree. And the next thing I felt was something that I didn't want. The enraged boar had tackled the tree and sent it flying away. I held onto the small gaps in the tree to stay in my position. It was the boar's instinctive response. I was still shaking in the flying tree trunk. I wasn't caught and this time would end. I will live and escape this hell. My family. I have to go back to them. They are waiting for me. I will go back and see them all. My mind was chaotic, but I was still calm. Damn. I know it's crazy, but I want to feel fear in this type of situation. Not this fear in my mind, but in my heart. I was learning new things even in this life-threatening situation. This dynamic heart is not something that just calms my mind. I am calm, but I can feel all the other emotions. They are just overwhelmed by the warmth and calmness of my heart. Back when the boar was about to come there, I had felt the overwhelming difference in sheer strength. My back was drenched in sweat. I was horrified, and still managed to remain calm and think of the best possible situation. This skill is scary, but thanks to it, I will be able to survive more situations like this. I closed my eyes when I felt the impact of the fall. The tree fell a few kilometers away from where it previously stood. From the footsteps I could feel, it seemed like the boar was circling around the tree. I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. After not finding anything, it walked away with the corpses of two wolves. I knew I clearly heard it pick up the bodies and drop them on its huge back and felt somewhat angry. But life was always worth more than such small things. After the area quieted down, I didn't go out or did much moment. It was almost nighttime and nights are always scary. I definitely would stay in some small hole and then be eaten alive by those horrible things out there. I was hungry, but there was nothing to eat for today. We can eat the meat from some energy beasts, but ants weren't one of them. I was even more enraged now. That pig bastard had stolen what might have been my food. I had decided that when I was strong enough to kill that bastard, I will come and kill it. Definitely. And for that, I had to break through to Tier 2. As soon as I find a safe place to live. This little hole was enough only for tonight. I didn't have any choice anyway. I had to be at least Tier 4, to stand a chance with some great planning and cheap tricks to defeat the boar. Oh well. Survival is most important at the end. This night was long, very, very long. And terrifying. If not for my heart being calm, it might definitely have stopped working from those spooky and horrible noises. They weren't just dark, but also terrifyingly clear. Like beasts howling, fighting, and killing each other. Some owl-like voices rang from time to time. Sound of something splashing out and cracking in distance. Weird noises like ghosts. Screams of different creatures and sometimes human-like too. I even forgot to close my eyes or breath when I felt something around where I was. I was almost dead in my body, only my mind was working properly right now. This was horrible. It felt like days had passed in that time and that narrow, secluded, and dark place. I wanted to cry but held back all the noises and silent tears flowed out of my eyes. Ground filled with those tears and the blood from my bitten lips. This was a torture, a silent form of torture. Slow and physically painless. Asterisk. With a ray of sunlight leaking from a small hole, morning arrived. Sitting motionless in dead silence, I glanced out from the small hole. My eyes were red and swollen from all the crying and there were huge dark circles like a panda under my eyes. My lips had stopped bleeding, but the scars were still there. My pupils were not working properly because God knows how long I had been in this dark place without any form of light. After feeling that everything was safe out there, I splashed some water on my face. Cutting the small area with a mana arrow, I came out of that damn hellhole. Light entered my eyes and blinded me for a moment. Adjusting to the light as time passed, I looked around myself. It was a closed area surrounded by a thick group of trees. That freaking pig was much stronger than I thought. Thanks to my special clothes and shield, I was able to survive that crash. The tree that was big previously was now shattered in pieces. Some parts were cracked and the upper portion was obliterated. Close one. A long, fear-filled sigh escaped my red, torn lips. The place I had come out was just below a cracked part. If even a strong wind was blown, I might be dead. I was at least glad. Lady Luck didn't want me to die just yet. And I was glad about that even more. I knew I won't be able to forget about this night ever in my life. But I was happy about one thing. I was alive. I was alive to see this day, and that was enough. Stretching out my body for a bit, I jumped on a nearby tree branch. I jumped from branch to branch and went straight ahead towards the direction the sunlight came from. Without a proper direction, I knew I would just walk in circles. I didn't have much time anyway. I had to find someplace before sunset or I might not be able to endure another torture session. As the sun was rising on the horizon, a beautiful young woman with long blonde hair and light brown eyes opened the carriage door. They had stopped before a large building that looked special. Before her eyes were two large gates, and behind them was a large building decorated with different jewels and statues on the road connecting to the building. One statue of a goddess holding a scythe in one hand and balance in the other hand was particularly eye-catching. The scythe had a red blade and white body which looked magnificent. The statue was pure white with simple-looking golden cloths wrapped around her body. Her eyes were pitch black as if void of any emotions. She looked around this familiar place with anger in her eyes. Today is the day I get back what's mine. If just Ian was here. She clenched her fist. The sole purpose of coming to the capital as soon as possible was because of today's hearing. I wanted to give my precious son everything he could ask for here, but now, he was taken away from me. He wasn't with me when I wanted to tell him about everything he didn't know. I wanted him to look up to me. Seeing his excited, happy, and maybe angry expression was the only thing I was looking forward to. To tell him about who I was, who he was. I wanted to travel the whole capital city with him. Maybe more than just the capital city. We could have done many exciting things like kicking off these pigs that made me miserable. They were the reason my little boy had to suffer, and they were the reason he wasn't with me. I was angrier with them now. I was enraged. Nolan. It's okay. Calm down. Brian hugged me from behind and pulled me back to reality. Around us, people were passed out and some were choking while holding their necks. I walked inside the building without looking at them. Grandpa Jean was there to take care of these small matters. I stood beside a large wooden door on the ground floor. This was the only room on the entire floor of the building and used only to solve big matters like mine. Behind me was a young handsome man with light green hair and amber eyes, wearing a noble outfit underneath his white fur cape. He stood beside me with a dignified, confident expression. The area was bustling with people even though it was so early in the morning. Today was a good show for some, while some would just remember it as their worst nightmare. No one wanted to miss out on this opportunity. You can guess from how the preparation for today was going on for the last few days for some people in the capital. Though for me it was going on for the last 6 years. And there was no way in hell I was only here to win. It was more than just one case that would be fought today. I have my own counter-sue for their any and all opposition. I swore on my name that they won't be able to utter a word in there when today would come. Today might have been the happiest day of my life, but now nothing mattered anymore. I had lost the one that I wanted to give my everything. My love, my time, my everything. Now, I had lost my son. I had lost my pride and joy, my greatest gift and everything I fought for. I had lost as a mother. but this increased my fire to take everything back. I knew my son wasn't dead. He was alive, fighting for his life. If anyone could survive hell and return back with that same smile, it would be him. He could do it, I was sure. So I had to do what he asked me to. I had to look after my family. My devastated husband had taken all the blame for what happened to us and the one that soon will be with us. The new member of this family and the little sibling of my brave son. My brave son who protected his parents from great danger. Clearing the tears from my swollen eyes, I looked behind. Theo, Brian, let's go. They nodded, and the two guards who were covered in white armor announced our arrival, and the gates opened. At the end of the hallway was a huge table and 3 thrones, decorated in all types of gold and jewels. Under them were 2 tables, and in the middle was a giant ball of water, floating in the air. 2 tables were for the people who were to present the case, and under them was a large number of small chairs decorated modestly in total darkness. Those were the seats of the jury. I walked up to the right table with 3 chairs behind it. On the upper floors were the balcony of the spectators. Common folks who considered themselves somehow related to today's hearing were present there. As soon as we sat in our seats, the doors opened again and people of the opposition walked in. A pig-like fat bastard in extravagant clothes and jewels. 2 normal-looking bastards who did dirty work behind everyone's backs. And lastly, a man with a finely built body, covered in a noble purple suit. A black cape around his clothes indicated his proficiency with darkness attribute. As soon as my eyes fell on him, a sharp aura started oozing out of my body. This bastard was the main reason I was here. Though he was weaker than me by a large margin and struck at tier 4 his entire life, he knew how to use his brain a bit. I had let my guard down once in the past, but now, things were different. Now, I was a wounded mother who has lost her precious son. I could very well kill him if I let go of my conscience. Oh, former guild master. It has been a long time. Count Carice Lowell, the bastard who framed me for the murder of our former guild leader. I was boiling with anger and now, I was smiling furiously. Oh, you little piece of trash. You have no idea what you did to yourself. Kneel. At my command, all 4 of them fell to their knees. Their minds went blank and the smirks on their faces instantly turned into fear. These minor characters didn't know how much I had changed. Now I wasn't just some cold princess who could be played around. I had much greater authority from when I was here before them. This level of authority could even be fatal for a tier 6 mage at full power. It wasn't potent back then, but after Ian, everything changed for me. I never wanted to get strong before because I was a fool to think I was already strong. I was nearing my potential now, but this much was enough for these shitty bastards for now. Nolan, enough. We are in the place of judgment. We can do that outside. Fortunately, Brian was there and they were still alive. This was enough to conclude the small anger of right now. I could read the thoughts on their faces. Those horrified eyes, shaking bodies, unclear minds, and guilt. Neither that pig nor that bastard could have thought I would straight out attack them in a place like this. How could that bitch get strong? Wasn't she already at some border village? This little bitch, was she always this strong? Why is she so angry when we had done nothing right now? They were the reason my previous baby was struggling in some dangerous woods. If I was never there, things might have been totally different in the first place. I sat down with anger still lurking on my face. Time passed as I was lost in my agonizing thoughts, and the voice that took me back was the voice of the start. Everyone, show your respects to the judges of Mayat. As soon as the guards at the door announced the arrival of 3 judges of the Goddess of Justice, everyone in the room stood up. The 3 judges of justice held a great amount of authority as well as divine power bestowed upon them through blessing. Blessing. In this complex yet simple nature, beings with higher power like gods and divine beasts can bestow some form of blessing on others. These blessings grant the person some of the power of the one that grants it. In the case of these 3 judges, they were given the skill of absolute authority. Power to imply any judgment within the empire. They were good people with precise judgment skills. Their judgments might seem unusual sometimes, but that would be the best one in that type of situation. They were also the reason these four fools can't do anything to me within this empire. Looking at them from my seat, I smiled. Asterisk. At the very back, a tall knight in white armor and a blue cape across his shoulders walked happily. Sir Angus, Punisher of Evil. A rank 7 Holy Knight King. With white long hair and a finely groomed beard same as his hair looked divine. His dark blue eyes smiled at everyone present. Asterisk. In the middle, an older person dressed in the holy clothes of priests exuded a warm and loving aura. Pope Benedict, protector of the innocent. A six-wing, divine healer. His hair was blue with some white ones mixed in them. Looking over everyone with his golden, shining eyes, he warmly greeted everyone. Asterisk. Leading both of them, a person with stoic but warm green eyes looked over everyone present with his mage outfit waving as he walked. Elder Theodore, creator of law. A Tier 9, light magician. His hair was short and uniquely light yellow. Asterisk. All of them had a good and approachable aura around them, just like my father. They are the same as back then. I smiled and looked at them. Sir Angus looked my way and gave me a warm look, but then, he changed his expression and blinked. He had a confused look as he looked deep into my eyes and sighed in pity as if he understood everything. He looked straight and walked to his seat with the other two judges. After they sat down, everyone else also took their seats. I think we don't need much introduction for today, so let's start the trial. Sir Angus spoke first, surprising everyone. The two other judges looked me in the eye from above and nodded as if they also understood what was happening. A guard with red and white armor in the middle of two desks of the opposing party and us spoke in a magic device in a voice that everyone heard. As the continuation of the murder case of guild leader of Farron Merchant Alliance, where the Lady Nolan Heliox from the house of Marquis Zahavi Heliox von Ethan Griffin was accused. With the testimony from several witnesses but the lack of clear evidence, the case was closed with the punishment of relinquishing her rights to trade within the capital. Now, I request the plaintiff to present their case. With that, the guard took 3 steps back. Theo, my childhood friend, and the lawyer representing me stood up. But, before he could step forward, I stood up and walked into the middle of the stage. From 3 steps upwards were judges, while 3 steps downward were the jury of the court. He sighed helplessly. He was also restless to meet Ian. He was the head of a Viscount family and some of my very few childhood friends. He was also a Tier 4 mage and Tully was his familiar. He was somewhat like my little brother, always there to support me. His wife was a really sweet person. She along with my big sis and I was some of the best event planners. Many noble ladies took our advice on many things like tea parties and birthday parties. My big sis was best in this matter more than myself. He also had a son who wanted to be a great magician. Hearing about Ian had made his determination even more solid. He was as excited to meet him as Carla. But now, no one could meet him. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew. It won't be easy to escape that hell easily. My heart shatters into pieces whenever I try to think how he might be doing. Suffering in that cold, dark place without food or any such resources. Caressing the ring on my hand, I wiped the lonely tear that succeeded to escape my eyes and looked up. I wanted to drag this with little more entertainment, but, as you can see, I am not in a state to play around. So, I will just hand over all the complaints, cases, files, countersues, and depositions to the court. I sincerely apologize for my rude behavior, but I would be grateful if you could accept my request. With a bow, I handed a storage device to the guard. The guard took it and handed it to another guard at the back. The 3 judges nodded at the guard and he took it backstage where the office for such thing was located. This whole time, the defendant party was stiff and their faces had turned ashen after my command. They had made their mistake back when they accused me with manipulated evidence and testimonies. I knew their ultimate goal would be my death, but so do the judges. Canceling my right to trade in only capital was the best support they could give me. They followed the justice, but back at the time, I had nothing to prove my innocence. I wouldn't have thought of that scenario before, but after that Count joined our merchant alliance, things took a sharp turn. Our previous guild master was the same as Grandpa Jin to me. But more than that, he was my teacher. He was the one who taught me everything about being a merchant. He was a great person, a real hero just like my father. Felix Isaac, the founder of the Farron Merchant Alliance and the guild leader of the third most successful and rich merchant group. He was my teacher, but I wasn't his only student. There were many excellent individuals taught by him who are successful people. The sixth-ranked merchant group is solely founded and managed by his students. They are good people, but because of this incident, some of them had a cold relationship with me in past years. Well, that will be cleared one of these days. I wasn't much happy about everything that happened these past few years, but Ian was one only reason I was able to let go of those petty things. But now, my Ian was away in a dangerous forest. I wanted to send search parties from our night brigade and my personal squads, but I wasn't sure of the outcome. They might not be able to find him, and he might actually be in that forbidden zone. But I had to try, and teaching these side characters some lessons was definitely important. I had a lot of work ahead of me, so wrapping things here properly was important. After a moment, which seemed very quick for that kind of work, a guard came out with a complicated expression. Without going to the judges, he walked straight toward me. With a confused expression, I looked at him when he spoke in a very quiet voice. "Lady Nolan, it seems like you handed us the wrong storage device. This one was filled with books." I stared at him with a stoic expression, not showing my anger, embarrassment, or sadness. I took the storage device full of Ian's books and put it back into my bracelet. Taking out the other storage device, I took off the yellow note on it and handed it to the guard. The guard walked back, and I heard some silent, pitiful sighs. All three of them were smiling sadly down at me, only to make me even more embarrassed. They were some of the strongest and wisest individuals on this continent. And them hearing about this devastated mother's mistake seemed more embarrassing to me. I tried my best to avoid their warm and kind gaze and just stood there. After a much longer time, the guard walked out with some papers in his hand. He had a disgusted frown on his face. Handing the papers to the judges, he walked back with a bow. His frown deepened when he looked at the other side of us. All four trashes flinched as cold sweat might have run down their spine. They had no idea how deep their grave was going to be. The frown and disgusted looks on the judges' faces were enough to conclude today's much short hearing than the past one. This was a small one, but if given the chance, I might love to show Ian and the little baby what a real heated courtroom looked like. Murmurs started from all over the balcony, and people were jumping to find out what the results would be. The jury was given the same documents as the judges after a bit, and even they didn't like the contents very much. From slave trading to illegal business deals were just the tip of the iceberg. They had done unimaginable crimes within this city that was blessed by gods themselves. Let us not waste the time of everyone present here. Pope spoke in a stern and calm voice. There were things in those files that could make an always calm Pope sound angry. With 3 thumps of the gold-decorated wooden hammer, the judges made their decision. For atrocities committed by all the individuals listed here, we punish them with eternal imprisonment in Trigon Tower. And we return all rights of trades and merchant alliance to their rightful owner, Lady Nolan. The case that has been dragged for such a long time is now concluded. With that, I now had full control over my own merchant alliance. But at what cost? Ian, my baby, please, please don't die on me. I pleaded with tear-filled eyes. I wasn't sure what might happen if he... After the court hearing was over and all the small matters were cleared, we returned home. Yesterday was very devastating for all of us. It was impossible for me or Brian to tell others what had happened yesterday. I didn't even want to leave the house today, but Dad reminded me of what Ian told me. Ian wanted me to protect the baby and baby like Brian. He understood I was the only one who could do that. I might be able to do that, yes, for our better lives and for the future, a better future where my Ian would be with us. I had to do everything on my side. Brian would understand and come back to normal after some time, hopefully. I had to be strong here. But why me? Why was I the one that had to be strong here? Am I strong enough to do what he asked? Why did he even... Nolan, let's go. Brian stepped out of the carriage and wiped out the tears on my already red eyes. He wasn't doing any better than me. He might not be able to show that with his emotions, but I could feel him. That silent cursing. That helplessness. That anger. Remembering the past events where his parents went through something darker and similar. Even right now when he was wiping off my tears, his hands were cold. His eyes were void of many common emotions. He was just keeping himself standing somehow. I hated to see this. I held his hand and dragged him inside, straight into our room. The distance between the house and gates was great as a garden separated two places. But right now there was nothing visible in our eyes. Not mom or dad, not even brother or sister. We even ignored Carla ever since we got home. She was so excited to meet her little brother, but now no one knew how long that would take. I know he will come back. He will. I was sure I knew he will come back. He will come back. To me. To us. But even I knew this won't be easy or how long he might have to suffer. I knew. No hell is easy to escape. And he was maybe in one of the most brutal ones. Even so, as a powerless mother, the only hope I had was the ring that told me he was, at least alive. Soul rings. One's soul energy was stored inside them and it reacted whenever the soul was endangered. Soul energy was the fundamental energy of every living being living inside nature. If the soul was to integrate into nature, then it meant the person is dead. In dangerous situations, the soul weavers saw the reaction to the other ring indicated the critical state of the person. When the ring was reacting for the first time, my heart was running wild. But I knew it also meant he was alive. He was fighting, so I couldn't just break down completely. And if it meant I couldn't break, I can't let this fool of a husband break down either. We reached the room and I slammed it behind my back. We sat down and I cupped his big face and pulled it towards me. He looked at me with his soulless eyes. Brian, it wasn't your mistake. You were strong and you fought bravely. You protected us when you could, and it wasn't your mistake that Ian was pulled away. He protected you. He did what he always said he will do. He did everything he could then. Why are you acting like this? He asked us to look after the baby. You know, right? If you continue acting like this, how will he feel? Pull yourself together. We need you. Some life lit up in his surprised eyes. Nolan. He hugged me tightly and a dam of tears broke out. I hugged him back and continued my own downpour. We're still lacking as guardians. I swung my wooden sword for the last time for today's training. My training for the day was done. I had to do this by myself since no one was free. Grandfather, as well as Dad, was busy with some sort of work ever since Auntie came back. My little brother wasn't with them. I didn't know why. No one told me where he was. I was practicing so hard these past few months just to fight him. I wanted to defeat him so Grandfather could praise me a little bit more. Though he praised me more than anyone while talking about Ian, he was different. He was proud of me, but Ian thrilled him. My grandfather was a great person and my hero. I wanted to be just like him, so I started training at the very young age of 6. Grandfather used a warhammer, but a sword suited me the best. I knew the sword was best for me because I had already tried every weapon there could be available, and my synergy with the sword was unreal. I could feel the sword naturally. This was rare for children of my age or even any other professional sword wielder. Grandpa said my brother was somewhat the same, but unlike me, he always knew what weapon he would use. Though bows weren't that special and only used by those on the backlands of the wars, he wasn't some simple archer. He was a mage. Just like my uncles. He used magic to create arrows instead of those annoying circles. I liked that about him. He was also good with books, just like my dad. Dad and Mom were looking forward to meeting him for a very long time, but now, they were busy with something that they didn't tell me. Why were they even keeping something like that from me? It wasn't like he was dead or something. No way. No. He was amazing, and before fighting me, he wasn't allowed to die. I had worked hard to reach the strength of rank 1 knight. Those kids who played in the gardens now started fearing me. Well, I had nothing to do with those kids. All I wanted was to get strong and find that goal thing grandfather mentioned. I also wanted to ask him what this goal thing was exactly. It might be something simple if he found it, right? Well, what might be so difficult in these things? I was good with this sword, so I might also be good with fighting, right? Well, I want to at least meet my uncle and auntie. They were also busy ever since they arrived. Auntie looked very sad for some reason and uncle didn't say anything. I at least understood that something did happen to my little brother. But, thinking he might really be dead. No, that was thinking of the worst-case scenario. And I didn't like worst-case scenarios. I sat down by the large fountain in the garden and splashed some water on my face. I looked myself inside the water. Blood-red hair just like my mom and sky-blue eyes like my grandfather and dad. I was somewhat pretty, but that wasn't something I thought much about. I was still just 7 years old, so doing big things like fighting was still not allowed to me. I could have just fought those new recruits to pass my time, but nope. As a child, you should play and do other things besides training. Study for a bit, or at least do something you like. Those were my grandfather's words when I just played with a sword for a whole day without attending my dad's classes. Well, Mom knew I liked just playing with swords the most, so she was happy if I was happy. I liked that thing about Mom. Dad, well, what can he do? He wanted to teach me, but I would run away from him. Then Mom had to take care of him. Well, whatever to them. Thinking about unnecessary things was pointless. This tension and the hot atmosphere weren't a good thing. I wasn't one of those people that would wait for anything. I walked inside to ask anyone I could find what was going on and why only I was excluded. It was almost midday and the sun was almost on my head. The shade from the large trees didn't let much sunlight pass, but I could feel the harsh rays of the sun on my eyes. Took me a long time, but I was able to find a good-looking place. But there was only one problem with this. It was a small cave of a flame-poison spider. A purple-orange-colored giant spider with long white fangs. Purple acid was dripping from its mouth wherever it walked. It was an orange, ranked energy beast with lethal poison and fire attribute skills. I didn't want to go anywhere else, and this was the best place I would get here. I could close the entrance totally at night, so I would be safe here. And luckily this spider was living here by itself. But it's still impossible to kill this by normal means. I had to do thorough preparation if I wanted to take it down while being safe. Fighting a much stronger opponent was something I strictly wanted to avoid at all costs. But a place to call a temporary house was something very important. I had no choice but to kill that thing somehow. If I really managed to kill it, it might become my dinner for tonight. These spiders tasted actually as amazing as crabs according to some books. It would be a really nice thing if I managed to kill it. This one especially was a possible target. This one was weak against ice and physical type attacks. If I set some kind of trap, I might get that house all to myself. Sacrificing all the enchanted arrows I have on hand would also be no problem. With the natural treasures lying around in this jungle, I can make far more better things than these ones. With that in mind, I jumped to the other side of the tree. Jumping from tree to tree, I set up a crossbow-like automatic trap that I made while figuring out the spider's movement patterns. This was almost like a game. The spider would go out every 2 hours for 30 to 45 minutes to hunt some more. At that time, this area was almost clear. The area was covered with venomous webs on the ground, and many small creatures were already rotting in them. This was a secluded area at the very edge of a side forest. The cave wasn't much dark, and it wasn't that deep. Just perfect for 2 to 3 people to camp. I was sure this place would be perfect because this area didn't have much activity of other beasts. They avoided the poisonous webs even though some of them were much more poisonous. But I was also glad I was here. I still can't believe I saw a white ruby snake, a very rare, green, ranked energy beast. A pure white snake as long as a whale with real ruby-like red eyes. Its poison is sold as some of the most expensive materials in not only medical and crafting fields but also alchemy and enchanting jobs. They are mostly calm creatures and avoid small beasts like the spiders and myself. It just hunts and preys on beasts comparable to its own strength. A gentleman among high-grade energy beasts. Also a strong, very strong opponent to go up against. I'm sure even Dad would lose to it. It's on another level than that wild boar that made me go through hell. That pig should learn some things from such a gentlemanly creature. Thanks to him having its nest in the nearby area, which would be huge, this place is totally safe. After setting up 3 crossbow-like traps pointing at a single point, I put 3 arrows with almost tier 2 like spell freeze on them. As every trap was on the different trees, I had to calculate the perfect distance and point of collision. So in total, attack of 9 arrows would bang the spider. It wasn't easy, but my calm mind helped me much more than I thought. Everything was set, and now I just had to wait for the prey to arrive. Maybe I might die if things don't go as I thought, but the chances of that happening were just 15%. I climbed back from the tree after putting a small mark on the ground. After 3 minutes, the prey was in sight. As I planned, I jumped down the tree to attract its attention and lure it towards the death spot. All 3 places were connected with a thin rope that was burning right now. Just like those old bomb circuits, I had to finish this in the next 45 seconds. The big spider was almost 3 meters tall, and I was close to 1 meter and something centimeter, which was a good height considering I was only 6 years old. I looked into the spider's purple eyes and smiled. Let's start, little spider." The spider stopped as it spotted me. Taking out its large fangs, it screamed loudly. They were long, almost as long as my bow. I looked at the drops of liquid poison dripping on the ground and making a hole in this fertile brown soil. With its 2 legs stretched out, it ran towards me with its other 6 legs. I knew it didn't have any ranged attacks, so I just had to pin it down in the death spot for the next 40 seconds. I was glad that I was a ranged damage dealer, or I might have definitely died in close combat. This fellow was an expert in close-range fights, and I knew that. It started moving as its first skill got activated. An orange-yellow fire lit up on its 2 front legs. I moved a few steps and stretched out my bowstring. Water arrow. I had to do anything to pin it down, so I was already set on using all of my 21 enchanted arrows. There were mostly fire arrows, but well, I had to do everything I can to win this battle. I fired the arrow and the fire on its claws flickered, but it didn't stop its advancing. I took out 3 fire arrows and fired them at its back legs. It dodged 2 of them, but one struck it and pierced its body. There wasn't much physical defense in this spider. This was a pure attack-type predator. But this weakness would be the reason for its fall. 35 seconds. I took out 2 arrows with Wind Blade enchantment and fired while taking 2 steps back. It had crossed the woods, and now only the open area separated us. It dodged them both, jumping on the right side. It closed the distance again with its fiery front claws ready to dig through my skin. Behind me was a sharp wall with a small cave with trees surrounding the half-circle open area. 30 seconds. Taking out 3 arrows with the same enchantment Dad and I fired them at the left side of the enemy. It didn't try to dodge that one as it was already a lost cause in its eyes. But it was wrong. The arrows this time turned to their right and combined as one, successfully piercing its soft body as blood gushed out. Arrow spin. Learning different arts was the best thing I did, and I was extremely happy I did that. The arrows stuck on its back and it slowed down. The spider hissed and took a step back and changed its position. It was going to use some different skill, and I wasn't going to let it do whatever it wanted. 20 seconds. I took out 3 arrows of normal strength enchantment. Holding them in my bow hand, I took out another 3 arrows with small fire enchantment. First the fire arrows and just after them the strong arrows. 6 arrow quick fire. This was hard for me back at home, but right now, the dynamic heart and the hunger to survive were powering me. The spider jumped in surprise. Not even he thought there would be so many projectiles before him at the same time. Surprisingly, it managed to avoid or block every one of them. 12 seconds. My breathing was heavy, but my heart was still calm. I took out 4 arrows of different enchantments. Now, I wasn't even looking at what I took out from my storage device. Holding 1 arrow in my small mouth, I fired the 3 and quickly fired the last one at another place that it might land. The spider crawled its claws and started spinning like a wheel on fire. This was a skill, and I had no doubt about that. Fire rose from its body and all 4 arrows burned to ashes. 6 seconds. It was almost time, so I took out the last 3 arrows and smiled at the spider. Thank you for the new house. I just released the 3 arrows half-heatedly. The spider's skill ended and it blocked all arrows flying toward it. The spider was in the exact spot I wanted it to be. And then, swish, swish, swish. From 3 trees, a group of 3 arrows shot forth. 3 arrows combined midair and froze, making a twice bigger ice arrow than my own normal Tier 1 spell. The same thing happened with all 3 of them, and at last, splash! All 3 of them pierced the spider's body. With an agonizing scream and fountain of purple acid and blood, it fell down. I was safe from acid as I was a good distance away from it. The fight was finally over, and now, I had a house in this horrible hell. Somehow dragging the huge body of the spider beside the cave, I sat down to catch my breath. The fight wasn't easy, and dragging this thing was definitely more tiring than the fight. I'm but a mere 6-year-old child. That huge corpse is way too much. Dragging it inside would be foolish as there was still blood and acid remaining on some parts. This was more difficult than I thought. I was already worn out from the fight with this spider, and now I had to somehow cook it. What to cook inside a spider? I never actually cooked this kind of thing. Well, if we say it's just like some huge crab, I can think of some ways to cook it. But before that, how should I deal with this acid-filled spider? It was almost time for the sun to set, so I had to eat and make a door in this cave opening. There was still so much to do. I don't think I could eat this spider today, I sighed. Today would be another day without food in this hell. Taking out a healing potion, I put some drops on my hands. Using my new bow with hard string at such high speed cost me almost my hand. There were all types of cuts and scars. I had to heal them faster, so using some potion was important. Using it all was out of the question as I didn't have that many on me. Finding something similar here would take time, and I had to preserve everything inside my storage device. There wasn't much space in my storage device, and carrying unnecessary stuff with me would be a bigger mistake. As an archer, I had to focus on my movement and agility. Things that hindered my momentum were strictly prohibited. My heart is beating normally now, which means this place was safe. I hoped with a long sigh. The simplest detection magic could only be used at Tier 2. So, I had to upgrade my mana nucleus to Tier 2 as soon as possible. It was at least a good thing that I was in this forest. I had seen some rare herbs that only a few books had recorded in this forest many times. It definitely means that if I gather the right herbs and somehow use the mana in the demonic core, I might be able to reach Tier 2 in a short time. It was a good thing, and the time would be more important here than anything. And that short time to reach Tier 2 would be around 6 months. Even for me, reaching a higher level in a much shorter time was impossible. Mana was a tough thing to handle. I could circulate the energies inside my body much more easily than other people, but handling mana was a totally different thing. My mana control was at best good. It was much better than normal mages, but it wasn't phenomenal or unreal. It could be considered very good at my age, but it was still not at the level of some different races. Like elves who have unnaturally high affinity with mana and nature, or dwarfs who had an unreal affinity with earth and mana. There were many kingdoms with different races on this continent. Many of them even had very close ties with Roxana Empire. I can't use mana as easily as they could, but at least I could learn faster than them. Energy circulation increased my mana generating speed, natural healing ability, and processing of mana. Without it, I wouldn't be able to materialize mana of a higher element like light. My magic bow improved it much more, so the combination of skill and equipment was better than other Tier 2 mages. Releasing a deep breath, I stood up. The poison webs from the spider covering this area might vanish around the same time I would reach Tier 2, which means I had to finish things and move on from this awesome place. For the time being, a good door was necessary because I didn't know what happened here at night time. My mana was still almost empty, so I took out something from my dimension storage. A small piece of crystal rock that looked like a broken piece of a bigger crystal. Looking at it, I sighed deeply. Making those crossbows was indeed tough. I had to use the mana crystal that Dad gave me on my last birthday. I had saved it for a long time, and the situation was the most unexpected one right now. I had to use it, or else I don't even want to think about spending a night like that one again. A dark night in a secluded place without light and with all the horrible, terrifying voices.
No.
My heart was calm, but my mind was still working normally. I didn't want any more than what I have already experienced. The last piece from the mana crystal should be enough to make an earth wall. A wall of large rocks and tough earth. It was a tier 2 spell, but using the crystal as a catalyst might be barely enough. With crystal in my left hand, I sat down and gently touched the ground. Channeling some mana into my right hand, I started casting the spell. Imagining the wall with small as well as big sand and rock particles as well as a small hole in the corner, I took a deep breath. The ground shook and light started emitting at a fast pace. A wall of giant earthly rocks was erected, covering the almost whole mouth of the cave. The small gap would work as a gate for some time. Now I was almost ready for a small sleep. I had to wake up in 2 hours, so I had time until the night came. There was no way I will sleep at night. The jungle was much more horrible at night times. And seeing as there was a dead body just outside, I was more afraid to sleep. Setting up a bed with some leaves above the ground, I laid down.
I'm hungry.
I had to eat something tomorrow, or else I might lose my normal strength. Not being in the best condition here means straight-out death. In the dark cave with light coming out of small holes, I closed my eyes. Somewhere in the great forest, in an open area, a blue light flashed like a clap of thunder striking. The blinding light was so bright all the beasts roared at it and ran away from the spot. The light intensified and burst out in a blast. In the middle of this light, some small flips of wings were starting to get visible. The small wings were emitting great light as they flipped slowly. A small butterfly materialized just like the wings, and with another strong flap of its small wings, it dispersed the light. A butterfly with crystal-like blue wings and a pure white body flipped its wings and flew away. Unlike when the first time the light appeared, now there was nothing much special about it except the beautiful wings. Just like any normal butterfly, it slowly flew away from the place it materialized. After another horrible night, the first rays of sunlight graced the great forest of Kamet. With small dark circles around my eyes, I crawled out of the cave. The first thing that did not enter my eyes was the spider that I had killed with my life on the line. Good thing it was outside. I happily laughed with a tired yawn. There was almost nothing left of the spider, not even the acid-like poison. Only the traces of something were left. There wasn't even blood that was previously pooled on the ground. This was the great forest of Kamet, one of the 9 forbidden zones on this planet. Here I am, a small, helpless life form who was just a few steps away from saying goodbye to this beautiful world. A shiver ran down my spine. I was glad I covered the cave. Even the small hole left was covered with a rock from inside. I could only thank Lady Luck here. If some dangerous beast fancied a small human like me, I would have entered the afterlife. Releasing a long breath and forgetting about my possible breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I splashed some water on my face. Survival is horrible. If not for this miraculous ability to stay calm, I might have died many times by now just from an unstable heart and fear. This was nothing less than a blessing.
Ok.
Let's find some treasures and food so we could live in this damn hell. I smiled brightly to forget about, or to try to forget the negative things. Putting on the armor that I made from the ant shells last night, I checked it again. Indeed, light and strong. This should do for a while. I nodded and jumped on a nearby tree. Today's objective was to gather supplies for the next some days so that I don't have to go out from my den much often.
Mana grass.
A natural herb filled with mana. Increases mana pool of users by 0.1%. Don't work when the user already has a large amount of mana. Equals 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 equals. There was an abundance of this rare thing in one open area. Thanks to Dad, I knew a lot about herbs and how to recognize them. Just like right now, There was some normal green grass mixed with this special herb with a small blue line. Spotting this small thread-like line was difficult, so identifying these herbs was most difficult with normal eyes. Well, not for me. With the help of my mystic eyes, I could see these small lines very clearly. Even spotting a small dot on the grass was possible with them. Differentiating normal plants from poisonous or dangerous plants and herbs was easy for me if I knew about them. But I was still lacking in knowledge. I can't just pick up anything that I knew was good for me either. There were things that I can't take even if they were before my eyes. Just like that Sanctrin. I knew it would be a good material while making new enchanted arrows. But it was surrounded by a bunch of red fang catchers, small plants with real fangs. They weren't poisonous, but their bites were enough to paralyze your mind. I didn't even want to go near there. If I had an appraisal skill, things might have been much easier, I thought while collecting another blade of grass. Once I reach Tier 2, I should try working on my origin skill. I had to get strong here to escape and protect my family in the future. The thing that happened to me could have happened to Dad or Mom. This hell was also a great opportunity for me. Let's go. Clearing the area, I walked towards the next spot. Asterisk. Standing before a huge tree that seemed to reach the skies, I looked up. This a great Benia, known for its tough and light wood known to mankind. It also had some apple-like blue fruits that were edible. The only problem was the height. Even with my mystic eyes, I couldn't see the top of the tree. It was good that I didn't need to go to the top for fruits or wood, but the problem wasn't that. This great tree homed many beasts, insects, and plants. It had its own separate special ecosystem. Intruding on these beings was the same as making them all my enemy. I had to do everything naturally and slowly. I looked at the apple-like fruit that was almost half my size. If I try, I could barely shoot it down with every bit of mana I had. I would be not using multiple arrows of wind attribute to somehow cut that thick joint between branch and fruit. I had to be accurate with my judgment, because if I accidentally hit the poison sting beehive slightly above it, I would be dead, painted with holes all over my body. I gulped with just the thought of missing the shot. This was the only food I could find after my long search throughout the area. Going too far was out of point, as the only safe place for me here was my small cave. And as I was right now, spending another day without eating would surely be unbearable. Enduring all those weird noises at night and fighting to stay awake was devastating. Shaking my head, I took a few steps back. Taking out my magic bow, I took a deep breath. Focusing all my attention on the joint of fruit, I closed my eyes. It's been a long time since I felt like this. Everything around me started to disappear, only leaving a red thread connecting my line of sight and the apple. I knew what I had to do now. I had gone through life and death situations, and I was getting close to something. A wide smile spread out on my face, and I released the arrow of condensed wind particles. The feeling of being alone with the target in a void. A lone world of darkness where no light enters or leaves. There, the thread represents the goal and chances of achieving that small success. This was something that was still in the form of a seed. I had a long way before this seed would sprout, turn into a plant, grow into a small tree, then a big tree, and someday a great tree like the one before me. My efforts, struggle, and my entire life are its water and sunlight. This wasn't magic, nor it was my origin skill. It was something new, something different. Something warm which was cold before. Something that was pure strength. The arrow traveled on the thread at a rapid speed, my eyes barely keeping the track of it. And then, the arrow struck the correct spot, disappearing into the surroundings just after that. My calculation was right on the spot this time. The distance, amount of mana, and other factors were perfect. The big fruit, half of my size, falls from the tree. Surprisingly, it was still in perfect condition even after the fall from such height. Finally, I have something to eat. With tearful eyes, I walked forward to pick up the fruit. Though it was heavy, I knew I can move it to my cave. Took me 2 hours for that, but I finally made it back. I had to move through trees, so I had tied it to my back. Now, it was before me, Cutting down a small piece of the fruit with the tough outer skin, I took a small bite. The inside was juicy and soft, despite the little tough outer shell. It's sweet. This normal sweet fruit felt heavenly to me. Hunger can make anything taste better. Now, I had something to at least eat for the time being. Nights in the great forest of Kamet were different from most horror movies of my previous life. As undead creatures like ghosts, zombies, and skeletons were real in this world, the spookiness of the night increases manyfold. But, excluding these all, the nightlife of the jungle is very vibrant. The glowing plants, fungus, and small bioluminescent creatures make a spectacular show. I wanted to look at it a bit more, but the night was getting dark. Closing the small hole with a rock and mud, I walked back. On one side of the cave, I had dug a large hole with wet soil around it. It worked as a temporary fridge that can store the things like fruits and herbs for possibly 2 or 3 weeks. This wasn't something that could work as a proper fridge, but it could lock the moisture and keep it preserved. The preservation spell was second-tier magic, so I was still a long way from doing something like that. The apple was enough for me to last at least 2 weeks, so I was just going to stay inside my humble cave and do some seclusion training. I had enough herbs to increase my stats a bit, enough that I could hunt small beasts without being noticed. Stealth was also necessary for me right now, but that wasn't much big of a problem. I had a good affinity with nature, so noticing my presence required senses close to a yellow, ranked beast. I didn't want to get close to any of those beasts that were impossible for me to kill right now. There was almost nothing much to do here, just survive. Living alone in this hell, in a dimly lit closed cave, was something I never thought about in my life. Mom, Dad, please be all right, I prayed inside. After living with them all this time, I already had forgotten the lonely past life. Unlike before, I hadn't lost them this time. They were still there waiting, hoping, and maybe crying. Even if I was here in some humongous hell, I had hoped they were doing okay. Mom, take care of everyone. I smiled hopefully and sat down. She was the only one strong enough to handle Dad and baby. Dad would be blaming himself for all these things that we went through. Thinking that he wasn't strong enough to protect everyone, he would just blame himself. Mom was not that strong in this matter either. She would think why I asked her to look after them, but she will do that. I knew she would. I wanted to see them all. Taking a deep breath, I calmed crying my heart. The same heart that was as normal as any other time in situations of life and death. So it doesn't work with emotions like these? Little bastard. Well, this was a good thing. A very important and good thing. I wasn't some heartless, merciless machine. I had all of my emotions. The very thing that made an animal a human. A clear tear escaped my eyes as a smile spread out on my small face. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the carefully crafted metal doors. They were beautifully crafted with silver color and golden, red, and blue patterns. The voice that answered from inside was slow and tired. Yes? The person that knocked on the door before replied in a dignified, heavy voice. It's me. I'm coming inside. The door opened and a lady in a beautiful green dress walked inside. A forest green dress with beautiful golden embroidery all around it. The collar and shoulder long sleeves had white ends. The dress was fabulous, and the pink flower on her green neck ribbon was fresh. She had the same green eyes as her dress, deep and refreshing like a morning scene in the garden. She had fiery red hair which shined in the light of the big candle holder in the middle of the room with bright lights. Oh, Augustine, what brings you here? Buried in countless books, a man with ruffled sea blue hair and deep sky blue eyes looked up at her. Well, do I need a reason to see my beloved husband? She smiled and picked up the books to arrange them on the shelves. Her smile was fresh, just like her sweet scent of fresh roses. The aura around her was refreshing. August, Ian will be okay, right? He asked, closing the book he was reading in a heavy voice. He had an extremely sad look in his eyes. She looked at him pitifully. Everyone was worried about Ian from the day he went missing. Father even sent out search parties from Night Order, and Nolan is already done with her preparations. Noel and Brian both had suffered from this gravely. Father was also devastated by this news, but he was proud of his grandson. He always talked about how Ian knew he would protect his family, and in a dangerous moment, he did protect them. She was proud of him. He was not only Nolan's son, but he was also her nephew. She was also very eager to meet him. Nolan was a little sister to her for a very long time, and they were also close friends. She knew her, so she knew how much burden she was carrying by herself. Not only did she have to do her work as the guild leader of one of the top merchant guilds, but she also had to keep a promise. A promise that she would look after her family. There was a joyous thing that we were going to have another little one in our family, but the news of Ian's disappearance was grave. Everyone was doing their best not to show it, but anyone could guess from the atmosphere in the house. Father, Mother, Nolan, and Brian were doing much better than yesterday. Carla was also shocked when she heard what happened, and at last, this fool. Her fool of a husband didn't leave his room. He loved Ian and was the most eager person to meet him. He had made many preparations and even prepared for his birthday. She was happy whenever he asked her for her advice on that. Everyone in the capital knew about her talent and skills in regard to any event. She was one of the pillars of the Empire's higher society. Ladies from different households were happy to just talk with her, and she liked them. She walked closer to him and hugged him from behind. "Don't worry. He will be fine. Everyone knows he will be back safely. If not tomorrow, then one day." He made a promise to his family, right? He wished to protect everyone. So he will come back. Safe and healthy. She put her head on his back. He was a scholar and one of the best theory professors at the Imperial Academy. Though he was neither a knight nor a mage, he was an important figure for people of both professions. But what should I do about this worry? If something She cut him off and spoke in his ear. "I said not to worry, right? Instead of worrying, think about Nolan. She needs help right now. Not only from Mother, Father, and me, but also from you. Think about how we should help her. You are good at thinking, so I know you will figure something out." Biting his ear, she stepped back. He had a slight blush from the expected move. "Okay. I should think about something." With a small smile, he sat back on his desk. "Call me if you need anything. With that, she turned around to leave. But before she moved forward, he grabbed her from behind. They both were stunningly gorgeous, and when they stood like this, holding each other, it was beautiful. "Thanks." Biting her ear, he let go and walked back. Her dignified expression was slightly different now, and a very faint pink blush was visible on her gorgeous face. She rolled her eyes with a smile. She had successfully cheered her crybaby and succeeded for tonight. But her expression fell as she exited the room. "Be safe, Ian." She mumbled under her breath and closed the door behind her.